It's week 4 of the PDL season. I swear I caught myself about to say we were at the halfway point. That's not true. This regular season is 9 weeks instead of 8. But we're getting a decent ways in. One trade to start off week 4, and that is last week's opponent, actually. The Zorbe Chatots have dropped Mega Chestnut and Manectric for Hydrapple and Morpeko. So Mega Chestnut admittedly did not do super well last week against our Halifax Masquerainmen. But when I look at what's probably going on here, well, for one thing, Morpeko cost 1 point more than Manectric, so they free the points with the Chestnut to Hydrapple swap. But my guess is the main point here was the Chestnut to Hydrapple swap, and then they were able to get a slightly stronger Pokemon than Manectric with the point that they had, the points that they had remaining. My suspicion is Mega Chestnut, 1, was just not quite doing what they needed it to do as a strong Trick Room attacker, and 2, the opportunity cost of Mega Evolving it was kind of getting to them. This team had 3 different Mega Pokemon, 2 very fast ones in Aerodactyl and Swampert. I mean, Swampert's very fast with Swift Swim active in Rain, so Mega Chestnut wanting to Mega Evolve as well, which it definitely does if you're bringing a Chestnut game plan, because base Chestnut is faster, so not as good in Trick Room, and also it's just not nearly as strong. Means that you don't have the option to Mega Evolve Swampert, which makes Swampert a lot weaker. You don't have the option to Mega Evolve Aerodactyl, which, you know, regular Aerodactyl is okay, but if it has to hold its Mega Stone anyway, there's a decent chance you want to Mega Evolve it a lot of the time. So they take away some of that opportunity cost. 3 Megas is a lot. There's a reason I don't have that many. And they get a perfectly strong Grass-type Trick Room attacker, all the same with Hydrapple. And now there's a little bit more flexibility, right, to run a Hydrapple-focused Trick Room mode, and then also pair that with Swampert Rain, or something with Mega Aerodactyl, where you actually Mega Evolve the Aerodactyl. So I do think consolidating down to 2 Megas makes this team a little bit more flexible, and I think Hydrapple makes a lot of sense here. As for what Morpeko brings to the table, I mean, Manectric is just not very good, right? This is base Manectric. It can't Mega Evolve. It gets Lightning Rod, but there's nothing massively important that this does for the team. Aerodactyl and Politoed are weak to Electric, but chances are you don't need to dedicate a Pokemon to covering for that most of the time. I think most likely they just had a point available and took something stronger, like I said. And Morpeko brings the Dark typing. It hits harder. It can boost its speed with Aura Wheel. So my guess is they just had room for an upgrade at the Electric type position. And they went ahead and went for that. But that is the only trade for this week. I do wonder whether we'll see trade activity pick up a little bit more in the weeks ahead. I'm still thinking about it myself, but not committing to a decision just yet. More on that in a moment. But first, let's take a look at the standings. Pool A looks like this after 3 weeks. The Ontario Oguris, the only undefeated team remaining in Pool A, sweeping opponents aside with Melodic, Mega Floette, and a very familiar group of supports. But then there's a whole cluster of teams just behind them, as we're still pretty early in the season and the standings are clumped very close together. If I remember correctly, the top 4 teams in each pool will make the playoffs. So right now, the Digletts, the Grampas, and the Marshadows are rounding out that top 4, and the Poblano Ho-Ho Peppers, even though they have the same 2-1 record, are just outside on differential. And notably, the Digletts, Grampas, and Marshadows are all tied on differential right now. So even if these are the 4 playoff teams, anything could happen seeding-wise, and there's no reason they have to be the 4 playoff teams. The Peppers are still very strongly in contention. Everyone else is still in contention too, because there are 2/3 of the season left, and you know, nobody's that far out of it after just 3 weeks. Going to be a similar story as usual in Pool B. The Halifax Masquerainmen holding on to first place for now, still tied with the Revolting Raichus for that first place spot. And then a lot of teams in striking distance still, right? The Hisuian Houndstones and the Ryan Green Blue Porygon 2s have each taken, and the Calgary Camerupt have each taken 1 loss, but they're still close behind. And the differential, it's way too early to say this, but it could make a real difference down the stretch, as right now the Camerupt are outside of the playoff picture just because of 1 point of differential. But there's a lot of time to change that. There's a lot of time for other teams to change things, just like in Pool A. And specifically, one team that will be trying to change its fortunes, as it sits right about in the middle of Pool B right now, but gets a shot at the Masquerainmen, is this week's opponent, the Snowpoint Snorunts. The Snorunts have a roster of Mega Gardevoir, Male Meowstic, Goldango, Whimsicott, Blazebreed Tauros, Ariados, Fanform Rotom, Mega Feraligatr, Hisuian I blanked on this thing's name for a second, Camerupt, and Vanillux. So, there are a few different ways that they can mix and match a very strong group of Pokemon here, right? The thing that jumps out at you right away with their first 2 picks is the Psy Spam option with Gardevoir and Meowstic. Meowstic can set up Psychic Terrain so that Gardevoir can rip through teams with Expanding Force. They also have dual Fairies with Gardevoir and Whimsicott that complement each other pretty well, able to clean up Dark types that might otherwise give trouble to a Psy Spam mode. So Gardevoir, very strong Psy Spam attacker because it's also very threatening into Dark types with that Fairy typing. It can get speed control from Whimsicott setting Tailwind, and they can also do Trick Room stuff if they want, but the Tailwind is more likely. Meowstic and Whimsicott both bring a ton of support options to the table beyond just Tailwind and Psychic Terrain, as Meowstic can set screens, it can Fake Out, Yawn, etc. Whimsicott can click Charm, Light Screen, Encore. So a lot of ways to create openings for Mega Gardevoir to go nuts. Also a lot of ways to create openings for one of the strongest setup attackers of all time, Gholdengo, which also loves Tailwind, also loves screen support, can slot in very nicely. It also covers most of Gardevoir's weaknesses, although notably both of them are weak to Ghost. But yeah, Gholdengo can put in a ton of work with those same support Pokemon, so both it and Gardevoir are threats to run away with the game. And they are both special attackers, along with both being weak to Ghost, but there is also a physical setup attacker that can benefit from some of the same supports. Mega Feraligatr can click Dragon Dance or Swords Dance. It gives them a Fairy Dragon Steel Core with Gardevoir and Gholdengo, so they have strong synergy between those 3 Pokemon, all of which benefit from some of the same support pieces around them. Mega Feraligatr hitting very hard on the physical side with Dragon Eyes boosted Double Edge or with Water type attacks or something. The Ghost weakness is still a little bit apparent, but one Pokemon they have to help with that is Hisui and Camerupt, which has been putting in a lot of work so far this season with that Dark typing and deceptively strong offensive stats and moves. So it's a Pokemon that has shown up pretty often. I'm definitely expecting to see it against my Mega Gengar this week, and it can hit hard and be a menace. And yeah, Gengar is actually very strong into this team, if not for the Camerupt, so I do think the Camerupt will show up. But I haven't even finished covering all of their support options yet, because I neglected to mention Ariados, which can redirect attacks with Rage Powder or slow opponents down with like String Shot or Toxic Thread. Do I remember correctly what Toxic Thread does? I think it slows and poisons. So that's certainly an option for them. They also have speed control with the Fanform Rotom, which can throw off Electro Webs, or it can Will-O-Wisp things, or it can just go for electric and flying type damage. Maybe cover some of the weaknesses of Pokemon like Feraligatr and Camerupt. And then they can also use like Choice Scarf Vanillux to just click Blizzard, right? Or to set up the snow and click Aurora Veil if they don't want the screens on one of their other support Pokemon for some reason. That covers everything here except the Paldean Tauros, Fire-type Tauros, so it creates sort of a Fire, Water, Grass core with Whimsicott and the 2 Water types, although Whimsicott tends to play more like a Fairy type than a Grass type, but it is a Grass type, and it can bring Grass coverage to the table if it wants. But Tauros gives them another strong physical attacker, it gives them Intimidate, and it's just a good Pokemon all around. So basically, they have a trio of powerful setup attackers with that Fairy Dragon Steel core. They have a ton of supports built out around them, and then they have a bunch of other strong Pokemon with useful coverage to cover the gaps, as well as Camerupt to cover the Ghost type weakness. So I have once again built my team pretty hastily here. Hopefully now that I'm eliminated from all of the Smogon Classic, I'll have more time to be a little bit more deliberate about my building, but along with looking for weaknesses in my opponent's team to target, another thing sort of caught my attention as I was preparing for this matchup, and I'm going to go to the team right now, and this is why I said that I'm thinking about trades, but I haven't committed anything yet. I'm just going to leak now because I probably will have made a decision by the time this comes out, so it's not really much of a leak. I've been seriously thinking about some moves. I've been thinking about trading away a lot of my Pokemon. I've thought about some things that you might not expect that I probably won't do, but there's a decent chance that Armarouge and Snorlax are gone from my roster after this week. I'm thinking about a few different trade options that mostly involve getting rid of those 2. I've never really been sure what to do with Snorlax on this team, and I've not been sure over the last few weeks that Armarouge has really been the right fit for the role that I want for it. But when I looked over my opponent's roster and I saw value in bringing both Armarouge and Snorlax to this specific matchup, that was what helped me decide not to make the trade earlier. We will perhaps get some kind of look at what they can do. I don't necessarily have to bring them to the games, but perhaps we'll get a look at what these 2 Pokemon can do as they both make their season debut. before I make any final decisions on whether I trade them away within the week. And again, by the time this comes out, certainly anyone in the PDL Discord will know whether I have made those moves or not. But again, I'm not hard committing to any particular free agency swaps right now. There are a lot of things I've thought about, most of which I'm not really that interested in. But definitely the Pokemon on the two Pokemon on the hottest seats right now are Armarouge and Snorlax, and so I'm interested in seeing how they perform here. I think Curse Snorlax has potential to be pretty strong into my opponent's team. Curse is not one of the interesting Snorlax techs that I mentioned having thought of in the draft recap, but it's just sort of hopefully solid and reliable. I don't know how reliable it really is in a VGC format, but I do like Snorlax here because it has a ton of special bulk, and with the Curse setup, I've felt pretty free to invest it heavily in special bulk. And so it's relatively equipped to take hits from things like Gardevoir and Goldengo and threaten them back. Body Slam hits everything on my opponent's team, at least neutrally. Well, just neutrally because it's a normal type attack. It's not super effective into anything. It hits everything on my opponent's team neutrally except Goldengo, and I've crunched to cover for that. And my opponent doesn't have a ton of physical offense. They do have some strong physical attackers for Alligator, Samurott, and Tauros, so maybe I just said a silly thing just now, but as long as I can cover for those, I think Snorlax is... Well, the hope is that Snorlax can sit in front of support-focused Pokemon and setup-focused Pokemon with support from your typical Screens, Grimmsnarl, and Friendguard Vivillon sets and try to run away with the game. Snorlax's ability was a little bit tricky to choose. I thought about immunity because of the Ariados threat, but Ariados is not that strong a Pokemon. It could show up to this matchup, but I don't think I have to assume that it's likely to show up when a lot of my opponent's Pokemon are just kind of objectively stronger than Ariados. And even if Ariados does come to the matchup, that doesn't necessarily mean it gets a chance to poison things, especially when I can scare it with Pokemon like Armarouge and Gyarados. So I figured Thick Fat to functionally resist Blizzard from Vanillux was a little bit more valuable here. I guess it also takes a Fire-type attack from Tauros pretty well, although Tauros is more likely to click a Fighting-type attack into Snorlax. But that's the basic idea with Snorlax. I sort of led with it because of the trade possibility I'm thinking about. I don't know that it's really a focal point on this team, but if I see good opportunities to set up against what my opponent brings, then it would be interesting to see what it can do. And I have support for the setup with, as previously mentioned, very basic screens like Clay Grimmsnarl, nothing too crazy on that set. And I'm not running Sleep Powder on Vivillon this week. I've been spamming it a bunch, so my opponent will probably have to respect it. But this time it's Friendguard Vivillon, and I've brought Tailwind so that I can match Whimsicott's Tailwind. More on that in a moment, but for Snorlax's purposes, the more relevant things are Rage Powder and for redirection, and Pollen Puff to heal Snorlax. Pollen Puff also giving me a reasonably strong attack into support Pokemon on the other side, like Whimsicott and Meowstic, so I can maybe remove those a little bit more efficiently. So Pollen Puff pulling double duty there. The reason for Tailwind Vivillon this week is I didn't really start building around Snorlax. Snorlax came up later. Really, I started off building around Gengar, because Gengar is very threatening into my opponent's team. Again, if I can deal with the Hisui and Samurott, that's their only ghost resist. And Gengar is naturally faster than anything my opponent has, but my opponent has one of the very best Tailwind setters in the game in Whimsicott, so they can easily take that speed advantage away. So I figured being able to match their Tailwind would be valuable this week. I also thought about bringing Sarina to stop... What do they have for Fake Out? Meowstic. I thought about bringing Sarina to stop Meowstic Fake Out. I didn't quite feel like I had room for Sarina on the team in the end. Like, the last slot was Gyarados or Sarina, and I felt like Gyarados did a bit more. So I made sure to have Protect on both Gengar and Vivillon. Good move to have anyway, but specifically in this case so that I can protect around Fake Out pressure. And then maybe even get an opportunity to click Tailwind, offset from my opponent's Tailwind. Obviously, my opponent has so many support things they could throw at me, like Encore, Whimsicott could mess with that idea, but they probably don't have Whimsicott and Meowstic on the field at the same time, and if they do, there are other weaknesses to exploit. Otherwise, Gengar is very, very strong into this team. Shadow Ball hits most things super hard. Sludge Bomb hits Mega Gardevoir and Whimsicott even harder. And then Dazzling Gleam gives it some kind of coverage into Samurott. I'm realizing I didn't think about electric or grass coverage, but I like Dazzling Gleam because it also hits Mega Feraligatr harder. I thought about running like a support move like a Will-O-Wisp or Disable or something, but I figured there's not really any need for those this week. I just want Gengar to be a fast offensive threat, with Vivillon helping it with the Tailwind support, so Dazzling Gleam is fine. That said, I also wanted to make sure that I had some other answers to Samurott. Grimmsnarl is able to hit it super effectively with Spirit Break. Vivillon is able to hit it super effectively with Pollen Puff. And then I do also have Intimidate Gyarados. Serena would have been good into Samurott, but Intimidate Gyarados I also like for intimidating the Mega Feraligatr and for being a little bit more, especially if I don't Mega Evolve it, a little bit more threatening into stuff like Gardevoir and Gholdengo. I do, of course, have the option to Mega Evolve Gyarados. I do have a Dragon Dance set, so I have another setup option besides the Snorlax, and one that might be a little bit stronger in some positions. I just did my EVs a little bit ago, and I'm already forgetting some of what I EV'd for. I think +1 Gyarados is trained to outspeed Scarf Vanillux to minimize the chances of it getting sniped by a Freeze Dry. And then I felt like I could drop... Crunch is strong enough coverage into my opponent's team that I felt like I could drop the Water attack this week. And I should do that to make room for Power Whip so that I have something to hit Samurott, because Samurott resists both the Mega Gyarados' stabs, and Mega Gyarados is probably one of the better answers I have to the Samurott. And answers to the Samurott are important so that Gengar, Armarouge, and Snorlax can all do their jobs. So the trade-off was no Water Stab, but... And there is something that I don't hit with Crunch and Power Whip, I think. The Tauros. Funnily enough, you'd think Gyarados would be a good answer to Fire-type Tauros. This set is not, but in theory I can beat Tauros with things like Gengar and Armarouge. And yeah, I felt like some kind of trade-off had to be made there. Honestly, as I say this, I might reconsider. But I don't know. I think Gyarados being able to answer Samurott is pretty valuable. Finally, Choice Scarf Armarouge is here because it's able to... Well, it's one of the best threats I have into Tauros, which I just mentioned could be a bit of a problem. But it also hits Gholdengo very hard with its Fire-type stab. Basically, Armarouge's stabs are valuable into a lot of the threats on my opponent's team. My opponent doesn't have Wide Guard anywhere unless I missed it. And yeah, a lot of their support Pokemon don't take Heat Wave especially well. I'm running Expanding Force instead of Psychic because my opponent has obvious options for manual Psychic terrain game plans, so it would be nice to take advantage of their own Psychic terrain if I get the chance. And that Expanding Force, again, is one of my best offensive threats into their Tauros. And then just rounding out the coverage on this Choice Scarf set with Energy Ball and Dragon Pulse. I didn't know that Armarouge could learn Dragon Pulse, but I found out just scrolling its options in the builder. Energy Ball gives it something to hit Hisuian Samurott. Dragon Pulse is its strongest attack into Mega Feraligatr. So again, I'm kind of loading up on answers to my opponent's physical threats. There are some small gaps here and there, but mostly loading up on answers to them, which Snorlax is not necessarily the main game plan, but it could try to enable Snorlax to set up if I get the chance. Overall, I don't know exactly what my game plans are yet. I'm going to think about this before we play. Weak Armor Armarouge, because there's not a ton of Fire-type damage from my opponent's team anyway to activate Flash Fire, and Armarouge is not that crazy fast in this matchup, even with the Scarf, so getting a Weak Armor boost if I happen to, incidentally, would be kind of nice, but there's no specific plan for it. There's also not really a specific game plan here, but I've tried to build this team in a flexible way. Grimmsnarl and Vivillon can support Gengar offense, or Gyarados setup, or Snorlax setup. I think something like... Yeah. Grimmsnarl, Vivillon, one of the setup attackers, and Gengar in some order is a pretty reasonable mode to bring this matchup, but then I also have Armarouge as a flexible offensive check to various threats. A lot's going to probably depend on what I see at Team Preview, but I'll think about it some more before we play. But for our purposes here right now, it is time to cut to the games. I think we'll probably be playing on Champions again this week, so we'll just have to go to that and see what happens. Okay, yeah, I really don't know what to expect here this week. Armarouge and Snorlax both making their debuts, but we'll find out what happens. Okay. Whimsicott, Rotom, Samurott, Gholdengo, Ariados for Alligator. So none of the Size Spam stuff is here. There's no Gardevoir at all. There's no Gardevoir at all. That makes me almost kind of wish I had a Dark type attack on Grimmsnarl. That could be a strong mon. I mean, they still have a fairy. What am I even saying? They brought the Samurott for Alligator and Gholdengo, so this could be... Oh, there's no Tauros, so this could be a really good Gyarados situation, actually. I don't love the Snorlax setup that much into this specific group of Pokemon with my very specially bulky Snorlax, I think Gyarados is probably the Pokemon to try to set up here. But how do I do it? And can I figure that out in 33 seconds? I think it's a Mega Gyarados kind of game. If it's a Mega Gyarados focused game, I actually don't think I love leading with it, but we're going to go with that. And I think I'll bring Armarouge. I think Gengar doesn't make sense if I'm pretty confident that I'm Mega Evolving Gyarados. I mean, maybe Gengar could make sense, but I don't know. I didn't put all the pieces together quickly enough in the time that I had, but we'll see. I guess that's one other thing about playing on Champions in what's normally a Showdown League. On Showdown, people in this league don't usually start the timer, so I'd have a lot more time to think. But I'm happy to play on Champions. It's better content. But it did slightly disadvantage me in that way here. Okay, so Ariados is annoying. Ariados is a problem. I'd like to start Dragon Dancing, but maybe I'd rather... Oh, you know what? Let's fake out for Alligator. Let's actually go for a Dragon Dance this turn, at least. Then, yeah, I need to start just going for damage on Ariados after that. Okay, I got one Dragon Dance. Then went for Rage Powder. For Alligator, of course, won't be able to move. Now I get my Reflect, and I think I just Mega and go for Crunch. I'll target for Alligator. It'll probably be redirected. But for Alligator is also at -1. And Gyarados is at +1, so at least I've grabbed some initiative here, right? It's not my favorite thing that I have Armarouge in the back. It's more pressure to get rid of this Gator, but like... There's not really anybody that I could have in the back that would be helpful if that thing gets going. Hopefully I just get my stuff going first. There's the Mega Gyarados. That means Intimidate's now gone forever, but Crunch hits way harder than it would otherwise. For Alligator Mega Evolves, it's just going to be Rage Powder from Ariados again. Well, first, we see the Reflect. Isn't Rage Powder have higher priority than Reflect? Oh, what do you know? It's not Rage Powder this time, so I get the Crunch into for Alligator. They liquidate Grimmsnarl. Doesn't do a whole lot, all things considered. Oh, it is -1 through Reflect. They do get the drop. Oh, and they lunge into Gyarados, so they, Okay. That does more damage because I Mega Evolved than it would if I hadn't. And also... gets an attack drop, sending me down to neutral attack. But... can I just Spirit Break for Alligator here and Crunch Ariados? I think that puts me a little bit further ahead. Oh, well, okay, this time they're Rage Powder. I didn't really think about that, did I? So that's now unboosted Crunch. There's a little bit more than half to Ariados. For Alligator, will damage itself a bit with the double edge there, but Gyarados is taking damage as well. The thing is, Gyarados still having boosted speed is of some value here, right? But I think if I just attack again this turn, I'm probably okay. I'm still threatening the Spirit Break into for Alligator. Maybe I should have targeted for Alligator here instead of Ariados, but it would be nice to get rid of that. And if I can clear Ariados with Gyarados, I mean, my opponent could Protect or Switch, like that, but... oh, well, getting a Spirit Break into Goldengo would actually not be the worst thing. Just to lower its special attack. I don't hate that for me. I take out Ariados. The lunge is a fun tech, but in the end, Gyarados is at +1 speed, neutral attack. It's still hitting pretty hard. It's a Spirit Break into Goldengo now. Doesn't do much damage, but it does lower the special attack on that Mon. Also, Goldengo is pretty threatened by my Armarouge in the back. Whimsicott is their last Pokemon. That's a bit of a problem because They're going to set Tailwind. I think I go for my light screen here. The nice thing is I have 2 dark types on the field. I'm going to protect Gyarados. I have 2 dark types on the field, which means they can't Encore me. But actually, I didn't think this all the way through. If they can set Tailwind, then they can still just Moonblast Gyarados next turn before I can do anything. I should have just crunched Gholdengo this turn, actually. Okay, they didn't set Tailwind, so there may yet be a chance to do that. Make It Rain comes out. Doesn't hit Gyarados, so Gholdengo's going to go down to -3 special attack now. And I don't know if I mentioned in the builder section, this is a especially bulky Grimmsnarl, which is why I was pleasantly surprised at how little it took from the Feraligatr. Okay. I think here it's just crunch into Gholdengo. It's not ideal if they protect Gholdengo, but we'll see. Okay, they're going to sack Feraligatr to the crunch, I guess. Try to win with Gholdengo. That makes sense, but then Armarouge in the back is pretty valuable, actually. Okay, Feraligatr goes down. Gholdengo does, of course, get rid of the drops with this. I went for the Spirit Break to try to break Whimsicott's Focus Sash, assuming it has one. But Armarouge is... Armarouge is probably in a reasonable position to win. A Tailwind from my opponent here could still be a problem. But I'm just going to go for the crunch this time. I think I liked that play a little bit more. Okay, Colbur Berry, that's good to see. A little bit more in hindsight the first time. Or it's good to know about the Colbur Berry is what I mean. Still some decent damage. Moonblast into... yeah, I thought I saw Grimmsnarl turn around there. Wow, Grimmsnarl takes the hit. Especially bulky Grimmsnarl. Absolutely coming through here. They chose Thunderbolt to take out Gyarados. Okay. Just kidding. Thank you, Light Screen. Wow, okay. I mean, they're still free to Tailwind if they have it, and Gholdengo can just get a couple of KOs. But then Gholdengo traps itself at -2 attack if it goes for Make It Rain. They might be better off with Moonblast and... This is tricky. They can protect... Gholdengo hasn't shown that it has Protect. I'll just crunch it again. Yeah, the only way they take 2 KOs here is with Make It Rain. Maybe they're slower and more deliberate about it and they don't go for 2. And they just Thunderbolt. Okay. Have we seen Gholdengo switch moves since it hit the field? Do I know that it's not Scarf? But Thunderbolt was in a Grimmsnarl too. Okay, well now Whimsicott's the only mon left. I'm trying to think about whether I can hide that I brought the Armarouge. And I think the answer is a solid maybe. I'm going to try to. I'm going to go Vivillon next. Because what I can do with Vivillon is Tailwind while I protect Gyarados and reclaim the speed advantage. Okay, they actually just protect their Whimsicott here. That's fine. They can Encore Vivillon to Tailwind, but if they do that, they're not going to Moonblast into Gyarados. I just set my Tailwind here. Reflect fades, but that is fine at this point. And then it is Pollen Puff and Crunch. So what might my opponent's adjustment be in game 2? Well, first they do get to knock out Gyarados. What might their adjustment be in game 2? Playing more aggressively with the Gholdengo, in case I just, you know, throw lead Gyarados at them again is a possibility. How do I beat that? It could be Scarf Gholdengo. It's definitely a... I can't rule it out. Because I'm running a fast Gyarados and I was at +1 speed. So that makes even Mega Gengar not amazing into that. I mean, my original idea here was, for a lead in this matchup, was Vivillon Gengar. I deviated from that because I liked the... I really liked the look of Mega Gyarados into what my opponent actually brought to the set. There might be a way to bring Snorlax to this. Snorlax just needs me to handle the Feraligatr, right? But it's really, really good into a lot of their other stuff. Or I could just bring the same 4. I'm just trying to think. Oh, okay, they could bring Rotom to threaten Gyarados. That's something they could do. And then a lot depends on its set. Like, it might even be able to mess with Snorlax if it's running a trick set or something. But I think I'm going to try to have some fun here, and I'm going to lead Snorlax in game 2. I don't know how that's going to turn out for me. And then either Gyarados or Gengar in the back. I can see a case for either one. Let's do Gengar this time. Let's do something a little different. And see if I can catch my opponent off guard with that. Maybe trying to press the advantage with Mega Gyarados was the right call, but I feel like they'll have something to throw at me here. Could be Rotom. And Snorlax should stand up to Rotom pretty well. Actually, Rotom has multiple ways of messing with Snorlax now that I think about it. Okay, the Whimsicott showed Tailwind, Moonblast, and Protect, right? We didn't see its last move. It could be Encore. That's a real possibility. So what do I do? Fake out Rotom and Body Slam Whimsicott? Try to at least get damage on that right away. Maybe a Para? You miss 100% of the Paras you don't fish for? Or something? So yeah, Snorlax can sit on the field pretty comfortably against this lead. The problem is what else my opponent has, like that. Yeah, the Feraligatr could be an issue. Let's protect the Whims. Okay. I get to chip Feraligatr a tiny bit. I mean, I could try to set up with Curse, except I'm kind of afraid of... Oh, I actually would love to be able to switch Gyarados in here, but I don't have it. I could try to set up with Curse, except I'm kind of afraid of Encore, so I think I'm actually just going to Body Slam Feraligatr while I set my Reflect. And then basically I just hope that Feraligatr doesn't do enough damage while or I hope that I paralyze it. I could paralyze it. Otherwise, hope that it doesn't do enough damage while I Spirit Break and Body Slam through it. It's not the best thing. I might have needed to bring Gyarados instead of Gengar to make this work. Okay, Moonblast into Grimmsnarl. There's a lot. Well, I did a tiny bit more than half. My opponent's probably disappointed by that damage, actually. Double Edge into Snorlax is interesting because Snorlax has a lot of HP. That's going to do a lot of recoil. And then I get the Para. Okay, that's lucky. I feel like I've had a lot of good luck this season so far. Hopefully I'm not using it all up early. Grimmsnarl's in range. I think it's probably best to just Light Screen. Grimmsnarl's in range of a Moonblast if I don't. And yeah, paralyzing Feraligatr is huge. Potentially. There's a part of me that kind of wants to switch Snorlax out, actually, and preserve it for the late game. I don't know. Alright, let's bring Vivillon in. Because if I'm right about the kinds of things my opponent is likely to have brought to this game, I was going to say if I get rid of the Feraligatr, then Snorlax might kind of just win. Okay, didn't really anticipate that switch. That's a little, that makes things a bit harder, I think. But Grimmsnarl takes the Moonblast after setting Light Screen. I think I'm okay here to... I'll just go for a Spirit Break into Whimsicott. It'd be nice to break the Sash that it probably has. Am I okay to go for my Tailwind? I'm not sure, but I think it's for the best. I think I want to have Tailwind if my opponent gets Tailwind, if I'm bringing in Gengar, you know? Okay, they take out Grimmsnarl. That's probably how I get Gengar onto the field. There's my Tailwind. What does Goldango do? Thunderbolt into Vivillon, knocking it down to the Sash, I assume. Nope, not quite, but same concept. So now I get Gengar. I Mega Evolve and Shadow Ball the Goldengo slot. Maybe something switches in, but we'll find out. Still would like to get damage on Whimsicott if I can. Something does switch in. What's it going to be? For Alligator, okay. So they're sacking for Alligator to the Shadow Ball. Which I think is okay. They set their Tailwind. It is a turn offset from mine. Take out the Gator. Still not really sure how this one's going to turn out in the end. I do finally get damage onto Whimsicott. That's a lot of damage onto Whimsicott. What in the world? And here's a Rotom. I'll Shadow Ball the Whimsicott slot. 2 reasons to do that instead of Sludge Bomb. 3 reasons. 1, I don't need it to knock out Whimsicott. 2, it covers full Goldengo switch in. 3... Actually, I could see the Whimsicott protecting here. What was the third thing? Oh, if I get Encored, I get to choose my target. I don't know. I've been covering for Encore all game, and they've never actually shown it, but... I think... Maybe I'm misremembering. I think we have not seen all 4 of Whimsicott's moves. I think we've only seen 3 of them. They show Shadow Ball on Rotom, and it outspeeds Gengar, so maybe that's their Scarfer. I mean, I think it must be. So it's not Scarf Goldengo. They did a good job of bluffing that, I guess. By just never switching moves while it was on the field. I don't know if that was deliberate, but it feels like it might have been. Okay, we get rid of that. Get rid of the Whims. The Rotom's still here. So Rotom is probably locked into Shadow Ball, which is excellent for Snorlax. And it looks like, thanks to the Friend Guard, Gengar still takes another one. This is the last turn of my Tailwind. I can side Pollen Puff. Or I can just Rage Powder. I think Rage Powder is a little bit better. Let Vivillon... They do protect the Goldengo. Anyway, let Vivillon take the Shadow Ball. I mean, I can protect Gengar next turn to get out of their Tailwind. Can I still lose to Goldengo? Maybe. Oh, I don't have Friend Guard on Gengar anymore. Oh, okay. Side Pollen Puff actually would have been the call. But they have to beat Snorlax with Goldengo now. I mean, I say that, and immediately I thought, the second I said that, I thought, actually, that seems pretty doable. But I don't know. They have to actually do it. We'll see. What if Goldengo just clicks Nasty Plot? Now that I'm very confident that it's not choice, what if it just clicks Nasty Plot while I protect through their Tailwind? In which case it would have been free to attack it with Snorlax. And, like, potentially the game swings on me not doing that. No, it's just Thunderbolt. Okay. Get some good Snorlax recovery there. There's no more Friend Guard to protect Gengar from the Shadow Ball, so that might be a problem. But there's not really anything to do here except just attack. Protect the Goldengo again. I don't know why I fell for that. Well, either Snorlax wins this game, or I lose the game. That's all there's going to be to it. Protect Gengar. Crunch Goldengo. If they keep... The thing is, if I don't protect here, they might not continue the pattern of alternating protects. If they do, then I get opportunities to click Curse, but I'm not sure it's really going to work out that way. Gengar protects around this Shadow Ball. What does this Thunderbolt do to Snorlax? Oh, like nothing. Thank you, specially bulky Snorlax. Oh my god. Here's the Colbur Berry on Goldango. Oh, I saw Goldango's item last game. Right. I was speculating... That's good defense drop. I was speculating all that time that it was Scarf. And then I actually saw its item, and I just did not adjust my thinking at all. Okay, I lose my light screen. I'm just going to click Protect forever with Gengar, because there's nothing else for Gengar to do. I lose my light screen, but I get the defense drop with Crunch, so things get a little squishier on both sides here. And, oh my god, I get the double Protect. It doesn't matter. Gengar is just completely pinned down by the Rotom. And Goldango doesn't have that Colbur Berry anymore, so the next Crunch does a lot more damage. Almost KOs, not quite. I'm going to go for the triple Protect with Gengar because there's just nothing else for Gengar to do anyway. And as long as they don't crit me with Thunderbolt, I don't know, maybe Snorlax even takes a crit, but... Or Para Full Para also is something they could do that I hope they don't. But otherwise, Goldango is kind of doomed here. Okay, I lose Gengar. Gengar didn't accomplish a whole lot, honestly, in this game. They switched to Make It Rain and they miss. 5% chance. And that's a lot stronger than Thunderbolt. And it's single target. I think my opponent might have just lost the game on that 5% miss. Why have I been so lucky this season? Well, hopefully, like I said, it's not me using up all of my luck in the first half. I don't know. Snorlax was taking those Thunderbolts really well. Maybe the game didn't swing on that Make It Rain miss. I even thought about protecting there, but I thought, nah, Snorlax takes a hit. Well, I'll say this. I was pretty open in the team building section about seriously thinking about dropping Snorlax from my team. I don't know what decision I'm going to make. And it's possible I keep thinking about it up to the deadline, but Snorlax made a pretty good case here for sticking around. I don't know what would have happened if that Make It Rain had connected, but... I mean, even if I lost game 2, we'd go to game 3. And who knows what happens in that one, but... Alright, that was a strange one. But the Halifax Masquerainmen improved to 4-0 on the season. Definitely keeping at least our current share of first place in Pool B. It feels like the wheels have to start to come off at some point, but they haven't yet. This is a really strong draft that I have on top of everything else, and things are going well so far. Come back for week 5, and we'll see if that continues. GG's to the Snowpoint Snorunts, coached by Reckless Trico. Not sure if they're uploading this season, but my first ever PDL opponent all the way back in Season 2, and someone who was uploading this league before I was and gave me some inspiration to do it. Anyway, 4-0 feels pretty good, but as always, who knows what's next. This week, we start our viewing of the other sets with the Revolting Raichus taking on the Great Barrier Garchomps. So we'll find out immediately whether the Raichus are going to keep pace with the Masquerainmen for another week. We have Garchomp versus Garchomp here right off the bat, in the first slot on both sides as well. It is Mega Garchomp on the Raichu's side, regular Garchomp on the Garchomp's side, but do the Garchomps know their own mascot better, and we'll show them more love here? We'll have to wait and see. Otherwise, hey, we got Water-type starters on both sides too, and Rotom forms. A lot of symmetry here, and dogs on both sides as well, and something spiky. What does that leave? Electros and Gourgeist? Okay, a grass type and a water creature. There we go. A lot of symmetry between these two teams. But in terms of what the coaches are cooking, well, we might see more discharge spam for the Mega Electros. The Garchomps have brought both of their powerful electric types, although my guess is that's to deal with the Corviknight on the other side, and the Raichus have not brought the Corviknight. But we might still see Mega Eelektross try to deal with things like Primarina, Quillfish, and even Houndstone with the neutral discharge spam or something on the other side. Is this Mega Lucario? I don't remember. I think it is. I think that's right. But yeah, other than the possible Disquake stuff with Eelektross and Garchomp, which could be pretty strong, admittedly, into the Raichus Sand Core. If Tyranitar were here, which it also isn't, that's pretty vulnerable to Garchomp, so that's a good starting point for their team. I guess the other Pokemon here largely are just strong against the Sand Core as well. Like, Lucario can threaten Tyranitar, it can threaten Garchomp to an extent, maybe, depending on its set. Blastoise as well is very strong into those Pokemon, so is Chestnut. It's just a team of sand answers on the Garchomp side. And on the Raichus side, well, we don't see the sand. We do see Garchomp and Houndstone. And Garchomp is the only Mega that they've brought to this one, but it looks like they have something other than a sand game plan, unless one of these Pokemon is going to click Sandstorm. I'm not sure what can here, except I'd imagine Garchomp probably can. But yeah, this might not be Sandrush Houndstone in that case. I could see it being a support Houndstone. They've brought their Garchomp answers. They have a ground immunity, a ground resist as well in Gourgeist. They have Primarina to threaten it offensively, Quillfish to intimidate it. Mega Garchomp is probably the best answer they have to Mega Eelektross. Maybe Heat Form Rotom as well. And Gourgeist, of course, is also an electric resist. Gourgeist makes a lot of sense here because it handles a lot of the powerful offensive types that can come from the other side in ground, electric, water, and fighting. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Gourgeist put in some work here, maybe even setting Trick Room to support Primarina, but I think this is enough speculation, and it's time to find out. Garchomp versus Garchomp, Rotom versus Rotom, Water Starter versus Water Starter, Dog versus Dog. What's going to happen? So we got Garchomp and Eelektross leading against Gourgeist and Primarina. Frisk will immediately reveal that it's a Life Orb Garchomp, and we know, of course, that Eelektross has to have its Mega Stone. Eelektross will Mega Evolve right away, so they are just leading with the Disquake stuff here, it looks like, unless Eelektross is going to do something different. We do immediately see something different from Garchomp. It doesn't click Earthquake, which I guess makes sense into these two. It goes for Poison Jab into Gourgeist, but that is only neutral because of the Ghost typing, so it doesn't actually do a whole lot here. It could Poison Gourgeist, let's see, it doesn't. And we see Liquidation from Eelektross doing even less, as of course that is resisted. So yeah, Gourgeist's Grass and Ghost typing already looking very, very valuable against what the Garchomps have brought to this matchup, as if they have a way for this lead to break through it, this lead that looks very threatening into a lot of the Raichus roster, if they have a way for it to break through Gourgeist, they haven't shown it yet. And Primarina protected, I wouldn't be surprised to see Gourgeist set Trick Room here. Instead, actually, it's just Poltergeist into Eelektross for a little bit more than half. So Primarina is still going to be relatively slow, though, and it is staying on the field this turn. We see a Dragon Claw into Gourgeist, also neutral, but still hitting much harder than that Poison Jab. But Primarina moves before Eelektross and knocks it out with a Moonblast, so Primarina just needed Gourgeist to get that damage on Eelektross, and they actually do set up the Trick Room now. Primarina also showing the Life Orb. They set up the Trick Room now, but they managed to take a KO in the process, so a bit more efficient there from the Raichus. We see Blastoise come in now for the Garchomps. Goodra? Where did that come from? Gourgeist. Similar starts to the names, I guess. Switches out to Garchomp. We've got that symmetry on the field right now. As Fake Out goes into Primarina, that'll give the Garchomp on the other side a chance to do something. And that something is a Dragon Claw into the Gourgeist slot, which hits the other Garchomp coming in for 90%. Pretty good, even with the Rough Skin and Life Orb damage coming back. We see that it's Quick Claw Blastoise on the Garchomp side. The Raichu's Garchomp will Mega Evolve here, but we know that Blastoise will be the first Pokemon to move after that happens. Actually, we don't know that because the Garchomp's Garchomp protects. But now Blastoise will get a chance to do something, unless there's a Protect on the other side as well. Nope, it's just Muddy Water. It knocks out the Mega Garchomp immediately, so the Mega Evolving accomplishes nothing. We also get the accuracy drop on Primarina, as we see an Energy Ball do almost 3/4 to the Blastoise, but not quite get the KO. We see Houndstone come in now. Garchomp switching out to Wash Form Rotom. Holy Quick Claw W in the chat. Another Blastoise Muddy Water. No accuracy drops this time as Houndstone knocks it out with the last respects. Primarina Moonblast is about 70 to Rotom. But Rotom does get back over half with a Citrus Berry, but it's still in range of the next Moonblast. Primarina is being worn down by its own Life Orb, but not quickly enough to be very afraid of that, as I'd imagine with one more turn of Trick Room, well, I mean, these Pokemon can Protect. Probably. We know the Garchomp has Protect. Otherwise, that one turn of Trick Room means a lot of offensive pressure. But if they can just get out of the Trick Room, then maybe the Garchomps still have enough offense of their own to win this one. Although, they have to take out the Houndstone, and I think it probably has Fluffy, because there doesn't seem to be any sand on the Raichu side this week. So let's see how well it takes hits, if we get the chance. Rotom does show Protect. Garchomp protects as well, so they will get out of the Trick Room, as it was Last Respects and Moonblast on the other side. Now the Garchomps have their speed advantage again. We see leftovers on the Houndstone. Primarina switches out to Gourgeist and reveals, oh, we already saw all the items on these two Pokemon, never mind. Rotom doesn't have it anymore because it ate its Citrus Berry. Houndstone just protects here and avoids a Dragon Claw. Rotom goes for Discharge, so we do see the Discharge next to Garchomp eventually. It knocks out Gourgeist. Now Primarina gets back in. And Garchomp goes for Stomping Tantrum. Its previous attack did fail, so it gets the power boost, but then I assume at least that's how Stomping Tantrum works in this situation. But then even with a crit into Houndstone, it still does less than 40%. I don't know how Fluffy interacts with crits. My instinct is that crits intuitively should probably ignore it, but judging by that damage, I think maybe they don't. I don't actually know the answer to that, but yeah, the Houndstone took that really well, all things considered. And Primarina will move next, landing a Moonblast to knock out Garchomp. The Discharge comes out from Rotom. It crits Primarina, probably unnecessarily. Knocks it out, but it doesn't crit or paralyze Houndstone. And Houndstone is able to get that full power Last Respects and knock out the Rotom. Very scary for the Raichus, but Houndstone does pull through. Primarina also put in a ton of work this game, seeming to hit the exact right speed tier to deal with things like this Rotom and this Electros. The KO into Electros was also outside of Trick Room, right? So Primarina being faster than both of those. What are the base speeds here? Yeah, that has to be a slow Rotom and a slow Electros, I would think. We know it's not Scarf Primarina, we saw the Life Orb, but Primarina outspeeding some key threats, able to set Houndstone up in just the right position to win the game, although it was still a close one. Let's see if the Raichus can close it out, or if the Garchomps have a way to turn this around, because that game one was not super comfy for either side, I would say. Garchomp leads with Lucario on the Garchomp side against Gourgeist and Primarina again. We get confirmation that it is Mega Lucario, I remembered correctly, and it Mega Evolves immediately. Garchomp this time throwing the Poison Jab into Primarina. It's a lot more turn 1 than it did to the Gourgeist. 95%. Primarina does hold on, but not if it gets poisoned, which it does. Primarina will get one chance to attack. No, it won't, because they doubled into it with Lucario Meteor Mash. So Primarina faints. Not able to make any use of its speed tier this time, but Trick Room goes up for the Raichus. They get their Garchomp in. Once it Mega Evolves, it loses some speed, so it should be lower than these two. Slower. Lower in speed. Yeah, that works. And that is what's going to happen here. We see a Poltergeist into Garchomp for some good damage. We see Stomping Tantrum into Lucario, just knocking it out. But Garchomp on the Garchomp side, we'll get to Dragon Claw the Garchomp on the Raichu's side. But neither Garchomp is knocked out. Blastoise will come in here, get some fake out pressure into the Mega Garchomp, but the Mega Garchomp is still a threat with a bunch more Trick Room turns. After this turn, assuming it protects here, which it does, we see the Quick Claw activate again. Both Garchomp protect. Blastoise not even bothering with the fake out. Makes sense. It's pretty clearly forced out the protect here, so just uses that initiative that it grabs and throws an Ice Beam into the Gourgeist for 50%. And then gets one shot by Power Whip. Okay, Gourgeist looking pretty strong here. We see now the Rotom come in as the last Pokemon for the Garchomps, but with Trick Room still up, Rotom drops to a Power Whip, just like Blastoise did. Gourgeist going 2 for 2, hitting that attack and just knocking things out with it. And Mega Garchomp now able to make use of its lower speed stat than regular Garchomp, something that is usually a disadvantage, actually coming through for it here as it gets the KO with a Dragon Claw, and Garchomp knocks out Garchomp and hands the loss to the Garchomps. So the Raichus take a convincing 2-0 and remain tied for first place in Pool B. Anything going on in the chat? Talking about the Quick Claw. The Quick Claw was pretty cool to see activating a couple of times. Next, we have the Louisiana Hypercutters and the Calgary Camerupt, and I think you know what I've locked onto immediately here. The Camerupt have brought that absolute menace Overquill that had me almost speechless last week with its combination of setup and switching out, and I mean, yeah, you never knew what that thing was going to do. They've also brought Liepard, which is also a disruptive menace. Is it Mega Dragonite? I think it probably, I don't remember. Maybe we'll find out. But they didn't bring any other Mega, so that makes me inclined to think it's probably Mega Dragonite, although you never know with this team. And then some favorites like Crocodile and Cerulege, as well as Empoleon. On the Hypercutters side, it looks like a Trick Room game plan for sure. They have strong Trick Room setters in Mega Chimecho and Sinistcha. They have strong Trick Room attackers in Mega Heracross and Mudsdale. They have Tinkaton with Fake Out support, able to help them set the Trick Room up. And then Melodic, of course, can be a bulky setup option. It can also be nicely complemented by the same kinds of supports. So if Mega Chimecho wants to go for a Trick Room game plan, maybe with Mudsdale Clicking Earthquake next to it, it's well supported by Sinistcha giving it some recovery or redirection and Tinkaton Fake Out support, and those exact same supports can also be beneficial to something like a Coil Melodic. So the game plans seem pretty clear on the Hypercutter side, but the Camerupt are a wild card. Who on earth knows what we're going to see? Dragonite leads with Liepard against Tinkaton and Chimecho, so it looks like it's probably just going to be Fake Out Trick Room from the Hypercutters. Chimecho does Mega Evolve. We see the Fake Out go into Liepard. Makes sense. Probably trying to stop something like a Taunt from that Pokemon. Dragonite sets Tailwind. I think the Trick Room's going up immediately, and it is, so the Tailwind is a little bit surprising there. Now Dragonite will Mega Evolve. We see we see Liepard Encore Tinkaton locking it into Fake Out, so that makes Tinkaton not very useful right now until it switches out, which is interesting because Tinkaton is kind of a problem for Dragonite, right? If Dragonite wants to do something offensive here, I mean, it's facing two Steel types, and one of them's also a Fairy type. That's not a great position for it, but if Tinkaton is forced out, maybe Dragonite can hit hard something in the back. Like, all the Draco Meteor switch-ins are already on the field, and if Tinkaton doesn't switch out, then it's just not really accomplishing anything. So let's see how each coach handles it from here. But yeah, Dragonite Mega Evolves. The Fake Out obviously fails. We see Gravity from the Chimecho, so I don't know what to expect from there. And we see Dragonite just go for a Flamethrower. Chips the Chimecho down a bit. Chimecho actually takes that pretty well. Now it switches out to Melodic, and I guess the Gravity is meant to make sure that Hypnosis will hit even without Coil Boosts. Melodic and Sinistcha are the two Pokemon in the back for the Hypercutters. We see a Foul Play into Melodic on the switch-in. Doesn't do a whole lot. Neither does this Flamethrower. Leftovers on Melodic makes sense. Looks to me like it's pretty clearly a Hypnosis kind of set. Or maybe, you know what? Gravity doesn't only boost the accuracy on Hypnosis. It could also be useful for something like Hydro Pump, and that Hydro Pump is going to be Rain boosted because the Liepard just set up Rain for them. So that knocks out Liepard. But, okay, the Rain is meant to help Dragonite hit his targets with Hurricane. I'm not sure what the accuracy is off the top of my head of Hurricane in Gravity without Rain, but I almost wonder whether that was worth a try for the Camerupt. But yeah, the Rain does make the Hurricane safer to click at the cost of their Liepard getting blown up. Anyway, Sinistcha goes down, so that's not a bad trade for the Camerupt, I don't think. That takes that redirection off the board now. Tinkaton, though, will have to come back in. It's not Encore locked anymore. But we saw earlier that it's Mold Breaker Tinkaton. No, I didn't notice before, but I did notice this time, even right before the Intimidate came out. Overquill does intimidate both Tinkaton and Melodic here. That probably will mean Melodic will get a competitive boost. Yep, it does. And it's got Rain to make those Hydro Pumps hit harder. Overquill protects here. It's the last turn of Trick Room, I only just noticed. Melodic recovers, which is interesting. Just because it hadn't taken a ton of damage, but oops. But I guess they expected the opponent to protect both Pokemon on the last turn of Trick Room, is my guess of what happened there. Instead, Dragonite, multi-scale still intact, by the way. Last turn of Trick Room and Fake Out on the board. Yeah, they probably just expected 2 protects, and they saw 1. But Dragonite just goes for Haze here, so it immediately takes that competitive boost away from Melodic. At the cost of taking the Intimidate drop away from Tinkaton, but Tinkaton doesn't hit crazy hard anyway. Infamously doesn't hit crazy hard. Dragonite will set Tailwind again. It might actually be useful now that the Trick Room is over, although it's not like there are very fast Pokemon on the other side. I'm not sure the Tailwind is that useful. We see Barb Barrage from the Overquill into Melodic for 30% and Poisoning. And Tinkaton, I said earlier that Dragonite still had multi-scale intact. Let me note first here that Mold Breaker surely ignores multi-scale, so actually Tinkaton was going to do a lot of damage to it, even with something like a Play Rough or a Gigaton Hammer. But instead it shows Ice Hammer. I did not remember that it can learn that move. I guess it makes sense. I guess it gets Hammer moves, generally. Although I don't know if it gets Dragon Hammer, but... yeah, I'd forgotten Tinkaton could learn that. Ice Hammer just one-shots Dragonite. Usually Mega Dragonite is a Pokemon that's going to take a hit at least once in a game, but the Hypercutters found a way to not let that happen. And Overquill takes a nap as the Melodic finally does show Hypnosis. So even without their Trick Room up, the Hypercutters are putting out a lot of pressure. Now Empoleon will come in. It still has the Rain to boost its Water-type damage. Overquill stays asleep. Empoleon actually just goes for Flash Cannon. It does 19% to Tinkaton. Not super impressive. Melodic recovers off some damage. And Tinkaton throws a Gigaton Hammer into Overquill for almost 70%. After the Citrus Berry, Overquill... once again, much like the earlier Citrus Berry interaction in the last set, it gets back over half, but it's in range of the next Gigaton Hammer. However, of course, the difference here is Tinkaton can't click Gigaton Hammer again on the next turn, because that's just how that move works. So, Overquill still staying asleep here, got a chance to wake up, but it didn't happen. Empoleon throws a Water-type Weather Ball into Tinkaton, does about a third, brings Tinkaton to about half. It's not negligible damage, but Tinkaton has been sitting on the field for a while now and is not ready to faint just yet, especially as it's immune to Barb Barrage, so we don't yet know whether Overquill can damage it. But Tinkaton might not get a chance to throw off another Gigaton Hammer, we'll see. Melodic uses Ice Beam into Overquill, doesn't quite KO. Tinkaton uses Ice Hammer into Empoleon. I kind of wonder whether that's a misclick. I think it's probably not a misclick. I don't know when the Tinkaton set light screen, I guess I missed that. Oh, it was right before the haze. Okay. But we've seen all of Tinkaton's moves now, and it can't click Fake Out or Gigaton Hammer this turn, and Light Screen is already up, so the only attack it had was Ice Hammer. So I guess that was the only thing it could use on the Empoleon here. It's double resisted. It does really unimpressive damage, but I don't think it's a misclick. I think they just didn't have much else they could do. I mean, they could have Ice Hammered Overquill and knocked it out. Maybe they thought the Ice Beam would do that, I don't know. Or maybe they thought if they remove Empoleon, they win anyway. Although we don't know the rest of Overquill's moves. Rain ends here. Overquill will finally wake up. Another Barb Barrage into Melodic. Crits it and knocks it out. That HP bar just disappeared. How does Barb Barrage work? Does it do extra damage to a poison target or something? Because that was crazy damage. Unless it has an effect like that, a crit it should not have KO'd. So I think it does, but I'll check. Unless I forget. Empoleon lands a Flash Cannon into Tinkaton. Tinkaton lands a Gigaton Hammer into Overquill, knocking it out. But that leaves Chimecho and Tinkaton, and unless Chimecho can do some good damage to Empoleon, especially as Empoleon shows leftovers here, I'm not sure how the Hypercutters break through. Tailwind ends. We see Chimecho. I mean, Empoleon's not doing a whole lot of damage either, especially without the rain, because normal-type Weather Ball isn't going to do much to these either. We see it get encored into Flash Cannon here. The Flash Cannon does not do much to Chimecho. It doesn't do a lot to Tinkaton either, even though it's neutral, so... there might not be much damage left on either side in this matchup. But again, I can see the leftovers on Empoleon making a significant difference, especially when Tinkaton is getting kind of low. But, I don't know, there might not be a lot of excitement from here. Light Screen goes back up. That's also, yeah, going to weaken that Flash Cannon. I think the Empoleon probably should be focusing on the Tinkaton because it can knock that out somewhat more quickly. And I think facing one opponent is better than facing two opponents. But, I mean, the leftovers is healing off almost everything these other Pokemon can do to it. The Chimecho is showing Flash Cannon. The Tinkaton... yeah, actually the Gigaton Hammer is also the most damage that the other side has. So I think Empoleon should be focusing on targeting Tinkaton. It also goes for Protect here. Well, that's fine, I think. If it's faster than Tinkaton, then it won't be encored into Protect. But I think, yeah, there's just so little damage on the other side that even though I think it's probably optimal to... oh, okay, well that's interesting. Trick Room going up means Empoleon can't safely Protect anymore. Even though I think it's probably optimal to focus on the Tinkaton first, the Empoleon does seem to be breaking through. The Gigaton Hammer is doing not terrible damage. It's a very, very strong attack, even though it's double resisted here. But so is Ice Hammer, and so is Flash Cannon. 1% left on the Chimecho. I mean, a crit here could also turn things around, right? Or that special... oh. They get the special defense drop with a flash cannon, but it's the same turn that Chimecho faints. And Empoleon gets a competitive boost. And Empoleon can protect here because Trick Room is ending. And the next flash cannon takes out the Tinkaton. Yeah, I still think it was probably better to take out the Tinkaton first. In fact, the flash cannon makes me, on Chimecho, I wasn't thinking about this, but that makes me a little more confident in that assessment because it's easier for Empoleon to damage Chimecho if it gets the competitive boost, and Tinkaton can't give it that boost. But in the end, the Hypercutters just had nothing left to break through Empoleon anyway, especially with the leftovers helping it to stick around for a while, so it was able to just 1v2 in a low damage showdown that doubled the length of the game. I think it was turn 10 when we got to this position, and we ended up going 20 turns. But the Empoleon does grind this one out. I'm going to quickly check what Barb Barrage does, and then we will jump to game 2, and we'll see if the Hypercutters have an answer to Empoleon in that game. I mean, they left Mudsdale and Heracross behind. Those are both very strong into Empoleon, at least offensively. It doesn't seem like this Empoleon has a water-type attack. Like I think Weather Ball being sometimes a water-type attack is all it's got, so Mudsdale is honestly not a terrible answer to Empoleon. But I also wouldn't be surprised to see something like Rock Blast Mega Heracross, because that could be very threatening into a lot of what the Camerupt have brought, apart from the possible double Intimidate with Overquill confirmed to have Intimidate and Crocodile not yet revealed. But we'll go find out after I promise I'm not that bad at typing. My keyboard just has some difficulties. After I check Barb Barrage, its power is doubled if the target is affected by a non-volatile status condition. Okay, so it's not specifically... Oh. I guess in Gen 9 it is specifically if the target is already poisoned. But yeah, that's why it did so much damage. That plus the crit. Anyway, game 2. Liepard and Overquill against Tinkaton and Chimecho. So same lead again for the Hypercutters. It's a roll, but I only had 2 PP. I actually was not thinking about PP. So that was a closer game 1 than I realized. Anyway, the Hypercutters running back the same lead. We'll see if the rest of the game plan is broadly the same as well. I don't know what Liepard and Overquill are going to do, but let's find out. It's going to be something. The Fake Out goes into Liepard again. Chimecho Mega Evolves, but then it gets hit by Throat Chop from Overquill turn 1, and that does about 2/3, so a lot of damage already on Chimecho. Chimecho can't use Hyper Voice or Boom Burst, not that it seems to want to anyway, but Trick Room goes up, but now what will Chimecho do? It'll switch out to Mudsdale. Okay, so Mudsdale is here. Tinkaton gets locked into Fake Out again. Mudsdale comes in on a Throat Chop, takes about a quarter, but it'll get a stamina boost as well. And with 3 more turns of Trick Room, it's poised to do a lot of damage here. I thought we might see Chimecho switch back in so that Mudsdale can just click Earthquake next to its levitating partner, but instead it's Melodic switching in. Overquill protects. Liepard taunts the Mudsdale. I think Mudsdale's fine with attacking here. It actually shows Body Press, lands a crit that I'm not confident matters into the Liepard and knocks it out. Empoleon is here, but Empoleon is a lot more vulnerable to Mudsdale than it ever was to Tinkaton and Chimecho, being weak to both ground and fighting. Cerulege switches in for Overquill in front of Melodic. That's interesting. As Empoleon protects and avoids a Body Press. I mean, they are wearing out the Trick Room turns, but not very well, actually, as Melodic, no gravity needed, just lands a Hydro Pump. No competitive boost either. Just lands a Hydro Pump. Unboosted, no gravity. One-shot Cerulege. Goodbye to that Mon. Overquill will come in one more time, get its last Intimidate, activate competitive on Melodic, and there's no Dragonite to get rid of the boost this time. Melodic, though, immediately giving up the boost itself and switching out to Chimecho. I'm guessing so that Mudsdale can safely click Earthquake in front of these 2 ground weaknesses. Yep, that does actually make sense to me. I don't think they needed the competitive boost. But it's -1 Earthquake. Let's see how much it does. Never mind, it's just Body Press. Okay, I don't know why Melodic switched out then. Empoleon also showing Haze, though. The Camerupt brought double Haze, which does actually make sense to me when Chimecho, Melodic, and even Mudsdale are all pretty significant setup threats. Right? Chimecho can set up with Cosmic Power or Calm Mind. Melodic could set up with Coil. Mudsdale, Stamina stuff. Double Haze actually makes a lot of sense to me here. Once again, it's kind of a mixed bag as they get rid of the boost on the body press, but they also get rid of the intimidate drop. And again, they do have 2 ground weak Pokemon sitting right here. I have no idea why Overquill also went for Haze. Maybe the Raymer King will tell us in the chat that it was a misclick, or they just got mixed up, and you know, sometimes your brain just kind of misfires and you think, I need to click Haze, and then you click it with both of your Pokemon when it really only does anything once. I mean, there are definitely recordings of me making plays like that, so I'm not going to be too critical, but yeah, I don't know why both Pokemon went for Haze there, and I'm guessing it was just a mistake. Maybe we'll find out in the chat. Mudsdale shakes off the taunt, but I'm guessing it wants to keep attacking. Chimecho drops to... Oh. Maybe they just expected... Oh, okay, you know what? Possibility number 2. The Camerupt expected one of their Pokemon to be knocked out there and wanted to make sure one of them got the Haze off. It just looks kind of silly when they both get the Haze off. And nothing else is accomplished. Anyway. They also are still free to knock out the Chimecho before Trick Room goes back up, so that much works out. It does drop to a Throat Chop, but I think that Earthquake is finally coming out now. Well, first we get a Flash Cannon to Mudsdale. It doesn't do a ton of damage, gives the Stamina boost right back. We see Citrus Berry on Mudsdale. It's still just Body Press. There's no Earthquake. I've been itching to see this Earthquake, and I'm starting to think this horse might not have it. We've only seen it click Body Press. Overquill protects around the Tinkaton Fake Out. Mudsdale finally showing another move, but it's still not Earthquake. It's high horsepower. Now it gets hit by a Barb Barrage for like no damage and a defense boost. Gigaton Hammer does the same kind of damage to Overquill that we saw last game. It's just over half after its Citrus Berry is its current HP, but it probably would drop to that high horsepower if it didn't miss. Overquill will get one more chance to do something. Barb Barrage does 5% and boosts Mudsdale again. Ice Hammer crits and almost gets the KO right there, but Mudsdale will still do the honors, landing its high horsepower this time. And this set has been... A lot of this set so far has been about gaps in the coverage between the two teams. Like, Overquill just didn't really have anything to threaten Mudsdale. Before that, Chimecho and Tinkaton just had no significant damage into Empoleon and got worn down by it. Sometimes... So there are some fun coverage techs here as well, like the Ice Hammer one-shotting the Dragonite was fun to see, but sometimes in draft leagues you see surprising coverage options to catch opponents off guard and do things like that KO and do Dragonite, but like I said, it feels like the gaps in the coverage have largely determined the winner of each set, as each game in this set, as each one has come down to an end game where one side just can't really do any significant damage to the other side. So we'll see if that happens again in Game 3, or if somebody's game plan... Well, I guess that would be somebody's game plan working out well. We'll see if that happens again in Game 3, or if it's more of a back and forth close fight. Let's see. Liepard and Crocodile against Sinistra and Melodic. Sinistra Melodic lead this time, okay. Melodic gets competitive boosted immediately, as we see that it is double Intimidate with both the Overquill and the Crocodile. Kind of bold to bring into Melodic, but we saw that they also have double Haze, so I guess they have ways to deal with it. No, we saw triple Haze. We've seen 3 different Pokemon use Haze on the Camerupt side, so I guess that's their way of dealing with competitive boosts on the Melodic. Anyway, Crocodile switches out to Empoleon, so that's a good Mon to tank a Hydro Pump. We see a Taunt immediately into Sinistra, but it has a Mental Herb, so it shakes off the Taunt. Empoleon still takes quite a bit, actually, from +2 Hydro Pump, but it's less than Crocodile would have taken. And Sinistra sets Trick Room, thanks to the Mental Herb, preventing it from being taunted, meaning Melodic and Sinistra have a pretty significant advantage here with that speed control up. Empoleon protects here. We see Encore into Sinistra, locking it into Trick Room. Melodic finally misses a Hydro Pump into Liepard, and Sinistra now is forced to reverse its own Trick Room. But can the Camerupt capitalize on that? Well, taunting the Sinistra is a good start. Liepard is then knocked down to its Focus Sash by a Hydro Pump. We see Haze finally come out from the Empoleon. Melodic could have done a lot more damage with that +2 special attack if it hadn't missed one of its Hydro Pumps, but the Camerupt get through it with all of their Pokemon still here, and they get rid of the boost. And Sinistra can't use Trick Room. So Sinistra switches out. We see Heracross has finally shown up for the Hypercutters. We see a Taunt on Melodic before it knocks out Liepard with that safe, accurate Ice Beam. And then takes like no damage from a Flash Cannon. Okay, not really sure if the Camerupt expected Melodic to switch or the Empoleon. I mean, we've seen all of Empoleon's moves. We know it doesn't have anything to hit Melodic very hard here. Go figure, gaps in coverage again, but anyway, yeah, that Flash Cannon doesn't really do much of anything, and also it kind of risked... It could have gotten the special defense drop and given Melodic another boost, so it was kind of risky there. Anyway, Dragonite's here. Dragonite Mega Evolves, so does Heracross. Heracross protects, no doubt afraid of the Hurricane. Avoids a Hurricane. Dragonite gets hit by an Ice Beam, but Melodic does not ignore multi-scale, so it only does about half. And Empoleon's still throwing that Flash Cannon to Melodic, but what did I say? It gets the drop, which means it gets the boost. I think Neutral Weather Ball was probably just strictly better to be clicking into Melodic here, right? I don't know. Gaps in coverage, once again. Heracross switches out. Raymer King says, eeeeee, that's not good, in the chat. Mudsdale comes in on the Hurricane, takes a lot of damage, and gets confused, and gets a stamina boost, and gets a Citrus Berry, but that's the last thing Dragonite gets to do before it's knocked out by the Ice Beam. It's not like Crocodile was safely switching in on +2 Ice Beam either. Dragonite was hoping to snipe that KO on Mega Heracross, but Mega Heracross just switched out, and it looks to me like the Hypercutters are in a pretty comfy position now. Empoleon does haze away the boosts on the other side. Crocodile, though, will have to come in and give Melodic a boost again. And yes, it does intimidate Mudsdale, but we've seen Mudsdale just spamming body press already. It doesn't care that much about being intimidated. Being confused isn't ideal, though. So it switches out, Sinistcha comes in. Melodic heals off the tiny bit of damage that it already has. Misses a Hydro Pump into Crocodile. And it gets roared out, so that is another way to get rid of the boost. They brought... I mean, I think the Camerupt expected Melodic to be a problem, but they really brought 3 different Pokemon with Haze and 1 with Roar. The Melodic just can't get comfortable sitting on the field with his boosts, and yet it's still a menace. What a strong Pokemon. Anyway, Mudsdale's forced in. But Empoleon doesn't have a water attack. What is it going to do to Mudsdale that, you know, is fast enough to... Okay, I'm sorry, what just happened? How does Empoleon do damage to Mudsdale quickly enough to not lose to it? But also, Crocodile's going to gift Mudsdale a stamina boost by using Brutal Swing and hitting everything. Also gifting Mudsdale a bit of damage into Empoleon. At least it chips Sinistcha, I guess. We got Matcha Gotcha the other way. That does a lot to Crocodile. And a little to Empoleon, and heals Sinistcha all the way back up after that brutal swing that it took. Mudsdale, also not too terribly damaged, still able to take a Flash Cannon. Takes the special defense drop, but gets a stamina boost. Knocks out Empoleon with a +2 body press. And now we see Rage Powder. Crocodile goes for Brutal Swing again. Okay, I guess that's the use case for Brutal Swing, right? That it avoids the redirection from Sinistcha. The problem is, it does a little bit of damage to everything, but it doesn't do a lot of damage to anything. Sinistcha takes it comfortably. Mudsdale still not knocked out. Goes up to +3 defense, and body presses Crocodile for the win. If anyone asks if the Flash Cannon drop is real, show them this set. Yeah, well, you saw it with your own eyes, folks. And if you forgot about the move Haze, you got a strong reminder of that as well. But yeah, I really feel like type coverage was a lot of the story in this one, including Mudsdale being able to sweep with its ground and fighting coverage in the last 2 games, being able to close both of those games out with that type coverage. But the gaps in coverage, like I said, Empoleon just not posing a significant threat to Mudsdale because it only had Flash Cannon to hit it very hard. After Empoleon, that same Pokemon was able to grind out the Game 1 end game. Yeah, some really strange interactions between these two teams, as I think both coaches got into some positions that they hadn't really wanted, but it worked out for the Hypercutters in the end. Next, the Fluffy Friends take on the Ryan Green Blue Porygon 2s. The Friends have brought a different Pokemon this time. 2 different Pokemon, right? Let's see. I think they brought the same Pokemon all of the last few weeks, and it was Meowscarada, Greninja, Dragapult, Pangoro, Incineroar, Garbodor. It's been so consistent that I remember the exact 6. This time they swapped out their Poison type. They brought the Mega Scolipede instead. Maybe a bit of a better way to cover that Fairy weakness. And they've only brought 3 Pokemon weak to Fairy this time instead of 4, as Meowscarada is dropped for Raichu. That could be helpful to them. Those could be useful changes, as they're facing one of the strongest Fairy types currently in the game in Sylveon. But And Scolipede can set up with Speed Boost before it Mega Evolves. The problem is there's also a Speed Boost on the other side. Scolipede versus Espurr is probably the most interesting head-to-head matchup to me here, as they both have ways to boost their speed, they both have ways to boost other stats, and they both threaten each other offensively. Of course, Espurr being weak to Bug and Scolipede weak to Psychic. The Raichu instead of Masquerainmen, I mean, it's one weakness fewer into Sylveon, but Masquerainmen is faster and hits harder. I think it's faster, right? But maybe Raichu is here to do something else, like threaten the Mega Blastoise on the other side, or give them a faster Fake Out than Kangaskhan. Yeah, I can see Raichu doing a lot of work here, actually. Disrupting Kangaskhan, disrupting Blastoise. It's not the fastest Fake Out user here, because there's the Weavile on the other side. Being an offensive threat to Blastoise, although Masquerainmen could also do that part. But I can see Raichu making decent sense here. Could also... I mean, I'm putting a lot on the Fake Out here, but with that and Paralysis... And maybe stat drops, it can disrupt Espurr setup and stuff. For the Porygon 2s, we do have the duo of Espurr and Sylveon. Espurr able to set up Speed Boost and Calm Minds and Baton Pass them out if it wants, and Sylveon could potentially go nuts with those boosts if the Scolipede is removed. We've seen Kangaskhan put in a lot of work in recent weeks. We see Hisuian Typhlosion here complementing that. And Blastoise as well is here. We see Hisuian Typhlosion. Hisuian Typhlosion is their best offensive answer to Scolipede, especially since it resists Scolipede stabs. So it could be a remove Scolipede with Typhlosion and sweep with Sylveon kind of game plan. Weavile is interesting here as well because it's one of their best threats into Dragapult and Masquerainmen. Masquerainmen isn't here, but they had reason to expect it to be here. And Weavile could stop Dragapult from running away with the game if the friends are able to deal with their Sylveon problem with something like Scolipede. So let's see. Espurr and Weavile lead against Incineroar and Pangoro. Okay. I'm always a little surprised to see the Pangoro. I'm not sure what it's going to do, but we'll find out. First, we get our Intimidates out. Espurr just protects here, avoiding the Fake Out. Weavile throws off its own Fake Out faster than Incineroar's, of course. I just realized there are, what, 5 potential Fake Out users in this set? Are there more? Does Pangoro get Fake Out? I don't know, but Pangoro will flinch here. It went for... It probably went... maybe it's just faster than Incineroar. Maybe it didn't go for a priority move. But I don't know. Incineroar goes for Lash Out, but Espurr protects around that. And then gets its Speed Boost. Weavile switches out to Blastoise. Espurr goes straight for a Baton Pass into Sylveon. So Sylveon just taking the +1 speed. That's enough for it to do, for it to be very threatening in this matchup. Pangoro lands a Brick Break into Blastoise. Incineroar follows up though with a Fire Punch. Okay, both of those trying to hit Weavile, and then if Weavile's knocked out by the Brick Break, you get the Fire Punch into Sylveon. That makes sense. We also confirmed that Pangoro is faster than Incineroar unless they're speed tying, so it might have just gone for Brick Break or something last turn. Blastoise actually takes a fair bit of total damage from those 2 attacks, thanks partly to the Fire Punch crit. It is in range of the next Brick Break now. Incineroar switches out Scolipede. We see Blastoise Mega Evolve. Sylveon throws off a Hyper Voice. It immediately deletes Pangoro from existence. Scolipede doesn't take it super well either. It takes almost 40%. But as we see a Life Orb on Sylveon, so that Pokemon's going to hit hard. And Blastoise showing no fear, even at 30% HP. I mean, I guess knowing that the... +1 speed Sylveon has it covered. Very safe here to click Shell Smash, so it can be an offensive menace as well. We see Dragapult come in for the fluffy friends, but these are 2 speed boosted threats on the other side, so let's see how Dragapult stacks up. Blastoise actually protects here. Dragapult confirmed still faster than Sylveon, goes for Phantom Force. That's pretty good because it'll disappear. It can avoid this Hyper Voice. Scolipede, also faster than Sylveon though. Probably should be attacking Sylveon, but instead just throws off Toxic Spikes, maybe thinking the Sylveon would also protect, I don't know. But it takes a Hyper Voice reasonably well, and it gets a Speed Boost. Now it Mega Evolves. Blastoise, though, outspeeds Scolipede. Scolipede at +1, still slower than the +2 Blastoise, gets knocked out by Dark Pulse. The Phantom Force goes into Sylveon, but it does not do very much damage. It only does about a third. Sylveon hits Dragapult with a Hyper Voice, knocks it down to its Focus Sash, but we know that Blastoise can knock it out next turn. Actually, we don't know that because Incineroar can come in and Fake Out Blastoise. Blastoise protecting to avoid that. Sylveon protects as well. That means Dragapult gets another shot at a Phantom Force. But Blastoise Not bothered about that, just knocks out Incineroar with a Water Pulse, boosted by Mega Launcher. This time the Phantom Force goes into Blastoise, and that means Sylveon can get the last KO on Dragapult. I couldn't see Sylveon's HP when it was hidden behind Blastoise, but it took 34% from the previous Hyper Voice, or previous Phantom Force, so at 36% it might have taken the next one anyway. But we don't have to find out as the Phantom Force goes into Blastoise and Sylveon is able to close this one out. Honestly, +1 speed didn't do a ton for Sylveon because it was still slower than both Scolipede and Dragapult, but being a fairy type that hits hard with spread damage did a ton for Sylveon. So let's see what the fluffy friends have to deal with those qualities of the Pokemon in Game 2. Kangaskhan and Typhlosion now leading for the Porygon 2s against Scolipede and Incineroar. So maybe anticipating that the fluffy friends would lead Scolipede to try to threaten Sylveon immediately. They do get that position that they probably wanted by leading the Typhlosion here. The Kangaskhan, though, we also didn't see last game, so it'll be interesting to see what it does. First, the Intimidate will come out from Incineroar. No, first the Frisk from Typhlosion. We get Charcoal revealed on Incineroar, which also helps to explain why that Fire Punch was hitting as hard as it was. Kangaskhan, of course, has Scrappy, so it's not going to be intimidated. Scolipede Mega Evolving turn 1 this time. The Kangaskhan Fake Out goes into Incineroar and crits and does 32% right there, turn 1 with Fake Out. Kangaskhan continuing to go absolutely nuts in Pool B this season. And that frees Typhlosion to click Eruption and just knock out Scolipede. So that threat's gone. Sylveon can probably sweep now if it wants. But we see Raichu come in for the fluffy friends. So they are largely avoiding the fairy weaknesses. Half their team is weak to fairy, but so far we've seen the other half in this game. So they're definitely prepared for the Sylveon in the back, but the question is what they can do about this Typhlosion. Incineroar has already taken a lot of damage, mainly from the Fake Out. The Fake Out did more damage than the Eruption, but I mean, Incineroar can take another Eruption, so that makes things a little bit trickier for the Typhlosion, but really I just mean the Typhlosion can't just sit there and do whatever it wants. Let's see what it actually will do. Oh, it just does whatever it wants, actually. It just clicks Eruption again. Obviously, it doesn't have to worry about being faked out by Raichu because it's a Ghost type. The Eruption doesn't knock anything out, but knocks both of these Pokemon very, very low. Raichu sets Reflect, but that's not going to stop Kangaskhan's Last Resort, as it is Fake Out Last Resort Kangaskhan for, I think, at least the 3rd week in a row. Not stopping that from just knocking out the low HP Incineroar. And now Raichu will drop to an Eruption, I assume. I don't know what Pangoro is going to do. Kangaskhan switches out to Sylveon. The Eruption takes out Raichu, does about 2/3 Pangoro. Citrus Berry puts it back at 59%. It uses Storm Throw, which I believe is a guaranteed critical hit. But, yeah, I think it's a fighting type Frost Breath, but it still doesn't do much to Sylveon. And Sylveon doesn't really have to do anything except sit here and look scary as Hisuian Typhlosion completes the sweep. Did it get all 4 KOs? No, Kangaskhan knocked out Incineroar, which was the one fire resist that the fluffy friends brought to this game. But otherwise, Typhlosion swept everything. And we see the power of the fire and fairy type combination that I gather has been also winning a lot in the main, well, not the main VGC circuit. That's not really going on right now, but in online VGC tournaments in the main format lately, as Sylveon was able to absolutely menace the fluffy friends in Game 1 with their team being so weak to fairy types, and then when they made the adjustment to cover up their fairy weakness in Game 2, they had nothing really except the Incineroar to take fire type damage from Typhlosion. And Incineroar didn't hold up too well against Kangaskhan. That, I know it was a crit, but that fake out was as usual, Kangaskhan's fake out was just nuts. Finally, for Pool B, we have the Hisuian Houndstones and the Azurbe Chatots. The Chatots bringing their new Morpeko to this matchup, along with Politoed and Mega Swampert, so they can do rain stuff. Mega Aerodactyl, they're able to set Tailwind. They have that alternative Mega as well, although I think Mega Swampert is definitely stronger into the Houndstones roster. They have Fortress, which can stand up to physical threats like Mega Metagross and Tyranitar, and maybe hit back hard with Body Press, at least into the Tyranitar, as well as the Hydreigon. Yeah, Fortress makes a lot of sense to me here, actually. I'm not as sure what Morpeko does. And they have Trick Room options with Farigiraf as well. They can try to run Setup Fortress like they did in an earlier week, and that might not be terrible, although it has to be afraid of Fire-type damage from Scovillain in particular, and also from Hydreigon running fire. I mean, a few of these Pokemon can run fire coverage, but those are the most likely ones. But in the right position, I think Fortress could put in a lot of work, so that's interesting to see. But Mega Swampert is probably the most obvious thing for them to focus on, because it's just such a menace into the strongest Pokemon on the other side. Mega Metagross, Tyranitar. It also deals with Heliolisk. A couple of complications there. There could be a Weather War with Tyranitar setting up the sand to counter Politoed's Rain. And of course, Scovillain, we've seen, is happy to just sit on the field and click Leaf Storm on this Houndstones team. But then you can deal with Scovillain with dual Wing Beat Aerodactyl, actually, if they have that. So there's a pretty clear fast mode option there, but then the Fortress stuff is also interesting, and I hope we see what it does. On the Houndstone side, I mean, yeah, the Mega Aerodactyl is definitely threatened by Metagross and Tyranitar. I think Aerodactyl might be worth bringing as well, anyway, in certain game plans if they needed to deal with Scovillain, but otherwise, I mean, those are just some of the strongest Pokemon on the Houndstone side. And they brought them here. Scovillain does nicely help them have some way to deal with the Swampert. Hydreigon gives them a ground immunity and some solid neutral coverage in its Swampert, as well as being able to threaten things like the Hydrapple that isn't here, and more Pico and maybe Fortress depending on its coverage. And that Combat Breed Tauros, the pure fighting type form of Paldean Tauros, is always interesting to see, but I'm not really sure what it and Heliolisk are here to do. But let's find out. Hydreigon leads with Heliolisk against Aerodactyl and Swampert. Swampert will Mega Evolve turn 1, and then immediately take 97% from a Heliolisk Grass Knot. So that's a bit of a clue as to what Heliolisk is doing here. Strong answer to the Rain mode, I guess, with that Grass Knot coverage, especially while the Rain is not up, so Swampert can't just hit it with Earthquake first. Oh, yeah, Heliolisk also is a water immunity with Dry Skin, so that's another switch in on Swampert in certain positions. I guess it's really not that mysterious what it's doing here, and Tauros gives them Intimidate. Anyway, Aerodactyl sets Tailwind, so the speed control does come out, but it's a little bit late as Swampert took so much damage before it got its speed control. High Horsepower will one-shot the Heliolisk. I thought Heliolisk might have the Focus Sash. Maybe Scovillain has it. That makes a lot of sense. So Heliolisk would have just dropped that high horsepower if they switched Politoed in here and Swampert had gotten to move first, but yeah, the Grass Knot paid off for the Houndstones. Hydreigon sets Tailwind, but Swampert already got to attack before that happened. We see the Tauros come in here. It intimidates both of these physical threats. Swampert protects, as Aerodactyl does show dual Wing Beat, but it does less than half to Tauros at -1 attack. Swampert does avoid a Draco Meteor from Hydreigon. We see Tauros starting to set up with Bulk Up. That's cool. Is Tauros going to be a threat late in this game? It protects here, avoids a Rock Slide, which also Hydreigon avoids by dodging it. The Draco Meteor goes into Aerodactyl this time and knocks it out. Swampert's still here, but still very low. Wave Crash goes into Tauros' Protect, not accomplishing anything. Politoed comes in now. Swampert's going to outspeed anything with Tailwind and Swift Swim, but it's at -1 attack and 3% HP. But it has the Rain to boost its Wave Crash, so I don't know that +1 defense Tauros is going to be safe here. Hydreigon switches out to Tyranitar, takes the Rain away, never mind some of the things I just said a moment ago. Tauros throws off a Rock Slide, it misses Politoed, but it knocks out Swampert. Swampert, pretty... is Swampert bulky? I don't know. Regular Swampert is bulky, and this thing certainly looks bulky. I can call it bulky as a visual description, at least, right? Swampert, pretty bulky mon that resists rock, but because it took so much damage from the Heliolisk turn 1, because Heliolisk just sent it with that Grass Knot when, again, it would have just been knocked out without accomplishing anything if Politoed had switched in there. But because that worked out for the Houndstones, the Rock Slide is able to knock out the Swampert. Before Tauros takes an Icy Wind and gets its speed dropped, as does Tyranitar. Tauros now showing a Citrus Berry, gets some good recovery. We see Life Orb on the Politoed, but non-stab Icy Wind is still just not hitting that hard. But -1 speed on Tauros might matter. We see that though that Fortress is the last Pokemon for the Chatots. I did say the Fortress could be interesting here. I didn't really expect it to be the last Pokemon in a game plan like this, but let's see if it can turn this around. The fact that Tauros is running a setup set, though, could make it hard for Fortress to deal with it, because Tauros can bulk up too. Fortress, I don't think it's bulk up. It could be like Iron Defense or something, but yeah, Tauros can Tauros has ways to help itself deal with that. Although it doesn't have leftovers, it has the Citrus Berry and has already eaten it, so the damage is going to add up. We get another Icy Wind from Politoed here. Tauros just throws a close combat into Fortress, and it crits. So it does 77%. That means what? It would have done about half without the crit? That could end up mattering. We'll see. Tauros does, though, lose its defense boost when it uses close combat, which is worth noting, as Fortress does go for Iron Defense here. But Tyranitar, well, Tyranitar lands a knockoff into Fortress. It gets rid of the leftovers, but Fortress does hold on at 5%. And Fortress is faster than this -2 speed Tyranitar. If Politoed can remove Tauros, maybe Fortress can knock out Tyranitar with a +2 body press, and you know, then we have a game here. Let's see. Fortress also won't take sand damage. Tyranitar switches out to Hydreigon. They switched out a fighting weakness for a fighting weakness. If Fortress had just body pressed that slot, things would be pretty interesting here. But it protects. Politoed's still just going for Icy Wind. Does it not have another attack? Tauros takes that. Throws back a Rock Slide. It doesn't actually do a ton of damage to Politoed, but now Tauros switches out to Tyranitar. Hydreigon gets a chance to set Tailwind back up. But Politoed's still spamming the Icy Wind. Fortress does now show the body press and knocks out Hydreigon, but Tyranitar's still here. Tauros gets in, intimidates things at 2%. It's going to drop to the sand. Actually, I think the sand ends this turn. But the Chatots just protect through this turn. Yeah, sand does end, so Tauros does not faint. It knocks out Politoed with one more close combat. Having gotten rid of the speed drops, it's able to move faster. And the Hisuian Houndstones close this one out with a knockoff into Fortress. But I kind of feel like the key turn was, yeah, it was here. Because, so Politoed I think only showed Icy Wind, right? I don't think we saw any other move. Protect, but no other attack. But if Politoed has any even water type attack, I don't know. Tell me in the comments if I'm wrong. But I think if Politoed has something stronger than Icy Wind, it can knock out Tauros here. And if Fortress just goes for a body press, it's pretty safe to take out Tyranitar. If it catches Hydreigon on the switch, the Chatots might run away with this one. I guess the risk is Hydreigon switches in on your water attack. And what? Tyranitar protects? And then the Chatots are out of position. But they're in a tough spot here anyway with 5% Fortress and Politoed being their only Pokemon left. Obviously, there's hindsight bias in everything that I say here because I just watched the game and I know what happened. It's Monday morning quarterbacking. Not even. It's Wednesday afternoon quarterbacking. That's when I'm recording this. But so I know that it would have worked out if they'd done that, assuming this Life Orb Politoed has a stronger attack than Icy Wind. There are definitely variables that they were thinking about that I might not be thinking about here, but yeah, it looks like a pretty solid win in the end for the Houndstones, but it definitely could have turned out differently. Let's see if the Chatots can make things turn out differently in Game 2. Tauros and what's the thing called? Heliolisk against Politoed and Aerodactyl. So again, the rain and fast tailwind stuff from the Chatots. And it might work out this time. Tauros protects. Heliolisk once again just going for it. Throws a Thunder into Aerodactyl. Knocks that thing out in one hit. This Heliolisk is faster than this Aerodactyl. Is it Scarf Heliolisk? Is that why it's just staying in and sending attacks turn 1? Was it in a safer position? I mean, Swift Swim has a bigger boost than Scarf, so I feel like that was still risky in Game 1, but maybe I don't know the speed interaction. But Heliolisk just sends it again. Not so risky this time. In theory, Swampert could have switched in on one of these slots and is immune to the Thunder, but you know, even then, what's the offensive threat into Heliolisk in this position? So a safer opportunity for it to just throw off an attack, and it takes out the Aerodactyl immediately. And it must be Scarfed, right? To outspeed Aerodactyl. It will lose that Scarf boost now as it takes an Icy Wind from the Politoed. Dry Skin healing it in the rain, though. We do see Swampert come in. Heliolisk, I believe, is locked into Thunder. Tauros switches out to Hydreigon. Heliolisk doesn't care. Just clicks Thunder into the Politoed and knocks it out. And Swampert doesn't Mega Evolve, so Heliolisk gets to move first. I don't know how Heliolisk is getting away with this. It does get knocked out by a Brick Break now, but I mean, that Heliolisk both games so far, it just clicks attacks and somehow it works out for it. There's a good trade for the Houndstones, picking up 2 Pokemon for that, especially as they get Weather Control now. Tyranitar switches in, or comes in for Heliolisk. Politoed is fainted, and also the Chatots have no way to switch around because they're down to their last 2 Pokemon, which are Swampert and Fortress. Tyranitar and Hydreigon on the other side. Swampert Mega Evolves now. Hydreigon sets Tailwind. We see a knockoff into Fortress, but Fortress protected around it. The Brick Break does not quite take out Tyranitar. Does about the same damage, actually, that the Grass Knot did to the Swampert in the previous game, leaving Tyranitar at 3%. But Swampert is just never getting its speed advantage now. Tyranitar switches out to Tauros. There's also no more Icy Wind spam because Politoed is fainted. Dark Pulse from this Life Orb Hydreigon does just under half to Swampert. Hydreigon takes a lot from the Brick Break, so Swampert looking pretty threatening with that fighting coverage into Hydreigon, Heliolisk, Tyranitar. But the problem is it just has no way to get a speed advantage now. But it does occupy enough of the opponent's attention that Fortress is free to sit here and click this Iron Defense. This time it's still at full HP while it's at +2 defense, so maybe the Body Press can start going crazy in a moment. This might not be over yet. Hydreigon, though, going for Draco Meteor, takes out the Swampert. Crit didn't matter. We saw what Dark Pulse did, and Draco Meteor is much stronger. And now Fortress, it's in the position it wants. It's a full HP and +2 defense, but it's alone against 3 opponents. Let's see if it can pull this off. Hydreigon's going to take some Life Orb damage first. We see Bulk Up from Tauros. Body Press takes out Hydreigon. We know Body Press can take out Tyranitar as well. This actually is looking pretty similar to the last endgame. But Tauros is pretty healthy, and it can keep boosting and while Fortress is cleaning up its teammates, and I don't think Fortress wins from there, but we'll see if that's what happens. Tyranitar protects here. Tauros throws off a Rock Slide. It only does 12% to Fortress, and Fortress clicks another Iron Defense, so Fortress not taking the bait with Tyranitar coming back in might actually be able to keep boosting and keep itself in this game. Its boosts are faster than the boosts for Tauros, right? Because it gets +2 defense right away, and that also affects its damage output, while Tauros only gets +1 in each relevant stat. So can Fortress do this? Tyranitar just protected. It's vulnerable to a Body Press here. It does first get to knock off Fortress's leftovers while Tauros protects, but Tauros doesn't have leftovers either, and Tauros takes about 40% from a Body Press, leaving it at about 40%, although after its Citrus Berry it's at 65, so it'll take another Body Press at this point. Tauros also can fish for flinches with this Rock Slide. It only does 10%, but they could get the flinch here. Tyranitar goes for Super Power, gets a crit. This one might matter. The crit with Hydreigon did not matter, but getting Fortress this low with that attack, pretty valuable. And, oh yeah, and that was into +4 defense, so that would have done a ton less without the crit. And Fortress kind of getting punished for letting Tyranitar sit around so long with that Superpower crit. Now, Tauros Close Combat does not quite get the KO on Fortress. Tyranitar Superpower does not quite get the KO on Fortress. It survives at 1%, takes out Tauros with a Body Press. It is 3% Tyranitar versus 1% Fortress. But Tyranitar has not been taking speed drops from Icy Wind this time, so it outspeeds and knocks out Tauros with a Superpower. And yeah, that Superpower crit decided the game, I think. Both of these games were close. It's a rough 0-2 loss for the Chatots. Because, yeah, I think that Superpower crit decided this one. And then in Game 1, there was that one turn where it's easy for me to say in hindsight when I know exactly how the turn played out, but if they just played more aggressively, they would have been in a way stronger position. So I can't help but feel like the Chatots almost had this one, but almost doesn't count in the standings, and the Houndstones take the 2-0 win. We jump now to Pool A. First thing to say about Pool A is there's one set not accounted for at time of recording. The East Coast Espurr and the Oceanic Oshawotts have not played their match. My intention is that they intend to, but I've waited about as long as I reasonably can, and I don't know when they're playing. If they have played by next week, I will bring out my old solution and tack it onto the front of next week's video. Otherwise, maybe the front of a different one, depending on, how long it takes. Hang on, the sun's in my eyes. I'm going to close my curtains a little bit. That didn't really do anything. Okay. So that one set's not accounted for. We're going to start Pool A for the week with the Dapper Digletts taking on the Grampas. The Digletts also have brought their Swampert Rain mode, along with another fast complementary threat in Weavile. Weavile notably one of the best threats they have into the Torterra on the other side, as well as being definitely offensively threatening into things like Delphox and Mega Ampharos. They have Aegislash, which is a pretty solid check to Sneasler, as well as being able to threaten Delphox, at least with like a Shadow Sneak. They have Ariados for redirection. They have, is it Mega Gardevoir on this team? I think it probably is. That doesn't look that good here, though, into like Sneasler, Kingambit stuff. Yeah, maybe into Mega Ampharos. I don't know. We'll see what kind of role it plays. It is Weavile versus Sneasler in this matchup, by the way. I kind of buried the lead on that, but we do see the Sneasler on the Grampas side. Along with strong Pokemon like Torterra, Kingambit, Sableye, Delphox, and Mega Ampharos. That's all the other Pokemon that they brought. They brought some strong Trick Room threats here, but I don't see much in terms of Trick Room setters. I think Delphox might be able to learn Trick Room. No, I'm confident that Delphox learns Trick Room, but I think it's the only thing they brought that does, and it's not an amazing setter, especially faced with so many different offensive threats into it. Like everything, like all of these first 4 Pokemon are giant threats to Delphox. So if there's a Trick Room game plan on the other side, I don't know how they ever get comfortable actually using it. Maybe Sableye can give Delphox the support it needs. But I don't know what else the game plan for the Grampas might be here, so we're going to have to just watch what they actually came up with. Pelipper and Swampert lead for the Digletts against Delphox and Sableye, so if it's Delphox Trick Room stuff, we're going to see how it works now. And if it's not, then we'll see what is going on. Swampert switches out immediately to Aegislash. Delphox Mega Evolves. I forgot that it's Mega Delphox, but I mean, I kind of figured it probably was. And Sableye said Sunny Day. Okay, that's a good start. Able to switch off the rain immediately. Wait, their opponent said Sunny Day plus Grass Knot incoming in the chat and got it exactly right, as it is Sunny Day from Sableye. Grass Knot. This of course would take away Swampert's Swift Swim boosted speed. Grass Knot into the Aegislash, not doing very much damage. Solid scouting from the Digletts. Pelipper sets Tailwind for them. Now we see Sableye click Will-O-Wisp into Aegislash. We see Pelipper click Rain Dance, putting the rain right back up, but taking a ton of damage from the Psychic. And of course Sableye is able to just click Sunny Day again if it wants. Although, if Sableye clicks Sunny Day and then Pelipper clicks Rain Dance, they're kind of just stuck in a loop. Except Delphox can knock out Pelipper with one more hit, so the loop doesn't last very long. But let's see what Aegislash can do. It transforms here. Goes for Poltergeist, so it is relying on physical damage. And after the burn, that does 99% to Delphox. Delphox taking the hit thanks to the burn. May yet get a chance to knock this Pelipper out. It'll protect this next turn. We see Sableye miss a Will-O-Wisp into Pelipper. Delphox avoids a Water-type Weather Ball. Even if it were normal or Fire-type, it would surely KO now, but not through a Protect. We see the Poltergeist go into Sableye, but it only does a third, so the burn really potentially coming in clutch for the Grampas here. Pelipper switches out for Weavile. We see Delphox switch out for Kingambit. Kingambit takes only 4% from a Shadow Sneak. Sableye goes for Disable into the Pelipper slot. Weavile is immune to Prankster Disable, but also Weavile didn't use a move, so it's unaffected twice over. Kingambit more threatening in Aegislash than anything else we've seen so far. I don't know how the Digletts in this position break through it. So the Kingambit may be positioned just right from the Grampas here. They've pivoted in their threats for Delphox with Sun support, but Kingambit is able to menace those. So really well executed game plan so far from the Grampas. We see Protect and King Shield on the Digletts side. Aegislash avoids a Disable. No, it doesn't. King Shield doesn't block status moves. Aegislash gets its King Shield disabled, but they'd probably prefer that over its attacks. As Weavile avoids an Iron Head. Also, if Kingambit had targeted the Aegislash slot, then it would get Defiant activated from King's Shield, right? That could have been interesting, but it didn't happen. We see Sneasler switch in to face Weavile directly across from its counterpart. We see a Sucker Punch into what turns out to be Colbur Berry Shield form Aegislash. Kingambit's so strong that still does a third. Weavile goes straight for Triple Axle into Sneasler. It gets all 3 hits, but it doesn't quite get the KO. As Burned Sacred Sword into Choppleberry Kingambit. Kingambit and Aegislash attacked each other, and both showed their resist berries. It doesn't do a whole lot of damage there. Weavile protects. Sneasler protects. Shadow Sneak into Sneasler is stopped by the Protect, and Kowtow Cleave takes out the Aegislash. So, the Grampas, even though they got red turn 1, still executing their game plan pretty flawlessly here, picking apart their opponent's team, finally getting that first KO. Swampert's back. though, and the Sableye is not here to click Sunny Day, so Pelipper could switch in if it wants and make Swampert pretty menacing. There's still a chance that Swampert runs away with this game. Pelipper does switch in for Weavile. Kingambit switches out to Delphox, which has Levitate and avoids the Earthquake. Swampert gets one Earthquake off after Mega Evolving. It does take out the Sneasler, but not the Delphox because of that Levitate ability, and now Sableye's back. Pelipper switches out to Weavile. Swampert protects. It's Sunny Day again from Sableye. Delphox, not fooled, not baited into attacking Swampert, clicks Flamethrower into Weavile, gets a crit that absolutely does not matter, knocks Weavile down to its Focus Sash. But with its Focus Sash, Weavile holds on. Delphox now protecting. Sableye burns Swampert with a Will-O-Wisp. Weavile once again lands all 3 hits with Triple Axle, but doesn't get the KO that it needs, so the Grampas perhaps have done their calcs this week, as Delphox avoids a flip turn from Swampert, keeping Swampert stuck on the field. Of course, Pelipper can switch back in, but this turn it doesn't. Sableye could have clicked Sunny Day to cover for the Pelipper switch in, but the Grampa is still just getting their calls right. Instead, they disable the flip turn on Swampert. Delphox takes out the Weavile with a Flamethrower. Swampert did go for flip turn. Pelipper comes in now, but Sableye's still here, still able to click Sunny Day, which it does. Delphox Psychic takes out the Pelipper, maybe anticipating Swampert to protect here, or maybe just not needing to Grass Knot it at this point anyway. Swampert gets 2 KOs with a Rock Slide with the burn, but Kingambit and I said Kingambit and one of their Pokemon, but no, I forgot about the Sneasler knockout. Kingambit is the only thing left for the Grampas. Can Burn Swampert take out Kingambit? Maybe. Maybe. If there's any way... I think I missed that Psychic was a crit. So many crits this week. Maybe the Grampas end up wishing that they'd Grass Knotted the Swampert again, but... Oh, it's Supreme Overlord Kingambit. Okay, well this is probably over. Kingambit takes an Earthquake, thanks to the burn. If it had crit, then Swampert would have won. But Kowtow Cleave does 55%. That's it. I don't know the numbers on Supreme Overlord, but okay, well, Swampert confirming it's pretty bulky, I guess, much like its appearance. And now vulnerable to a Sucker Punch. I guess this is a Sucker Punch mind game now, except the Swampert is taking burn damage, so it can't play this. It can't even play the mind game forever. So this is very, very favorable for the Grampas. Swampert does protect this time and avoid the Sucker Punch. But yeah, Swampert only has a couple of turns left. Goes for Protect again here. Kingambit goes for Protect. But the Sucker Punch is pretty much free now, as Swampert kind of has to attack within the next couple turns. And so the Will-O-Wisp Sunny Day Sableye really made the difference for the Grampas in Game 1. I mean, that was a very solidly executed game plan all around. They made almost all of the right plays, and it paid off for them. But yeah, the Sableye especially was a menace. As the burns on Aegislash and Swampert mattered a lot. And of course, so did the weather control. So let's see how the Digletts deal with that in Game 2. Will we see Gardevoir? Will we see Roselli bury Sableye? Did we already see Sableye's item? I don't remember. Let's find out. Pelipper and... yeah, it's Gardevoir against Sableye and Torterra. Interesting. Of course, Gardevoir could, in some circumstances, be threatened by Delphox, but it's not Delphox leading this time, it's Torterra, which at face value is less threatening into Gardevoir, but we'll see. Gardevoir Mega Evolves. The Fake Out goes into Pelipper. Gardevoir is free to do damage, but actually it just goes for Calm Mind. I was going to say it's free to Hyper Voice. That's not actually true, because Torterra gets Wide Guard, although it didn't use it here. But Gardevoir doesn't attack at all. It goes for Calm Mind. And Torterra will get a chance to Shell Smash. Okay, this is interesting. Torterra's still not super fast, right? Even after at +2. But also, we know this Pelipper is Tailwind. I think we know that this Pelipper is Tailwind. I think we saw it last game. Am I wrong? Was it somebody else's Pelipper that had Tailwind? I think we saw this Pelipper use Tailwind. So, unless Torterra can knock Pelipper out very quickly, and I don't know what with, a Rock Attack maybe? It feels like the Digletts might be able to just take the speed advantage back and menace this special defense lowered thing with their Gardevoir. And Shell Smash makes it feel less likely that it is Wide Guard, although it's not impossible. Sableye has shown Sunny Day, Will-O-Wisp, Disable. Have we seen its last move? I don't remember. The Gardevoir clicked Calm Mind, so they're playing like the Sableye doesn't have Encore. I don't remember whether we've seen all of Sableye's moves. Oh, it's White Herb Torterra. Never mind the special defense drop, but still. +1 fairy move is going to hit hard if Gardevoir gets a chance. We see Sunny Day. Woodhammer takes out the Pelipper. If there was a Tailwind coming, we will not see it this game, but Gardevoir just goes straight for Hyper Voice. Knocks out Sableye through its Roselli Berry. Knocks out Torterra. I think they attacked Pelipper because they thought Gardevoir would protect. And honestly, I kind of thought Gardevoir would protect as well. So once again, just going for a big attack pays off for one of our teams here. It worked out in Pool A. Nope. Well, yes, it worked out in Pool B, which is what I meant to say, and now it also works out in Pool A. Even where a Pokemon seems like it's threatened, Torterra focusing on taking out the Pelipper, just dropping in the Gardevoir. Kingambit is here now with Delphox in the sun, so very strong offensive threats still for the Grampas, as we see in the chat. As we see Ariados, though, come in for the Digletts. I'm guessing Rage Powder Ariados with Focus Sash, creating an opening for Gardevoir to just throw off a boosted attack again, but let's see. I'm wrong immediately as Ariados goes for Protect, avoids a Flamethrower. Gardevoir Hyper Voice almost takes out Kingambit, but not quite. Kingambit Iron Head does take out Gardevoir. No Rage Powder so far from Ariados, but now can give that cover to H-Slash, which takes out Delphox with a Shadow Sneak. No burn this time. Kowtow Cleave into Ariados, as it actually shows a Citrus Berry. Okay, that's interesting. Sacred Sword, crit doesn't matter, Chople Berry doesn't matter, Kingambit's gone. A couple things here. I definitely expected you to protect Tailwind turn 2. What did I say? That's also what I was expecting. Opponent here says, yeah, I thought you might. So making those big reads again, and this time it pays off. Also, we see that Citrus Berry Ariados not Focus Sash, so that's why I protected in front of the Delphox, because Delphox would have just knocked it out. But because... well, Gardevoir got one more chance to attack and soften things up, and then Aegislash, not burn this time, was able to take out the Delphox. Ariados was free to take a hit very nicely there from Kingambit. Yeah, so Gardevoir was definitely the more effective Mega so far in this set, which makes sense into Sunny Day, Will-O-Wisp, Sableye, and a +1 we saw it knocks out through the Roselli Berry. But... yeah, I think that's probably the biggest difference in this game. They were able to remove Sableye quickly, and also their team just didn't depend on the rain anyway. So let's see how the Grampas deal with what I'm guessing will be a similar kind of game plan from the Digletts in Game 3, although maybe the Digletts will surprise me and go back to the rain stuff. But yeah, let's find out. Pelipper and Aegislash. Interesting. Against Sableye and Kingambit, so no Gardevoir lead this time. Kingambit, I guess, is here to threaten a Gardevoir lead immediately, so... the Digletts may be having the right idea here, but let's see how these Pokemon deal with it. Aegislash just goes for King's Shield turn 1. Kingambit goes for Protect. Aegislash does not avoid a Will-O-Wisp. I was about to say the wrong thing again, but I caught it this time. King's Shield does not stop status moves. Aegislash gets burned again. We saw the burns make a huge difference in Game 1. Maybe they will again in Game 3. Pelipper just throwing a Weather Ball Kingambit, but Kingambit protects. Pelipper now switches out to Gardevoir. So Gardevoir's here, it was in the back this time, as Sableye goes for a Disable into that slot, but that slot didn't use a move, so we're fine on the Diglett side. Aegislash will use Sacred Sword. We know it's Chople Berry Kingambit, and Aegislash is burned. Yeah, doesn't do a ton. And Aegislash doesn't quite drop to Kowtow Cleave because of its Colbur Berry. Once again, the two activating each other's berries, but that burn damage is going to knock it out pretty soon. Yeah, gets one more turn. Gardevoir Mega Evolves and protects. We see Disable into Aegislash to stop the Sacred Sword. They do successfully stop it as Gardevoir avoids an Iron Head. So the Grampas are putting decent pressure on the Digletts here, but now Ariados is here. The Delphox isn't here to threaten it. We know it takes a hit from Kingambit pretty well. Sableye could disable the Rage Powder, but Ariados has to use the Rage Powder first. It does here. We see Sunny Day from Sableye. We see Calm Mind from Gardevoir. Iron Head from Kingambit. Yeah, does a little less than half. And Sableye can disable the Rage Powder if it wants, but not before Ariados uses Rage Powder again for this turn. And that spread Hyper Voice is going to hurt things. Kingambit switches out to Sneasler, but Sneasler takes neutral damage from Hyper Voice. It's not like this is a Fairy Resist. Once again, knocks out Sableye through the Berry. Knocks the Sneasler down to a Focus Sash. So Sneasler will get a chance here, potentially to threaten Gardevoir, especially as the Rage Powder is disabled on Ariados. Kingambit comes back in, gets a Supreme Overlord boost. We see Ariados switch out to Pelipper as Gardevoir just protects. Avoids a Dire Claw. Iron Head goes into the Ariados slot. Not sure why that's not Kowtow Cleave, but yeah, that is resisted by the Pelipper. Gardevoir now giving up its boost, switching out to Ariados. We see a Sucker Punch into Pelipper, confirming Pelipper went for an attack, but the Dire Claw could have taken out Pelipper and prevented this attack, but instead it goes into the Gardevoir slot. Makes sense. You can't just leave that free to click Hyper Voice, especially when the Digletts have shown a pretty clear willingness to do that. But this time they do make the safe switch. Ariados does not take very much from the Dire Claw, eats its berry, and Pelipper gets a Weather Ball to knock out the Sneasler, and that leaves Kingambit and Delphox. Oh yeah, the Grampas had another Pokemon. Well, so the Grampas, they have so many offensive threats. They still have 2 giant offensive threats. Well, the only one left for the Digletts is Gardevoir, and they're not in a position to try to get Tailwind with Pelipper, so it still looks rough for the Digletts, although actually the Ariados can just Rage Powder, and if they call their target well with the Weather Ball, then they can level things pretty easily. Never mind, Ariados switches out to Gardevoir. Apparently I have no idea what's happening in this set. Basically ever, except on turn 1 when I made the same read that the Digletts did. Anyway, Delphox Mega Evolves and protects, avoids a Weather Ball. Pelipper drops to an Iron Head, so they don't get another easy Weather Ball KO. It's just Gardevoir and Ariados now against Delphox and Kingambit. Ariados, very helpful with the redirection, but not an offensive threat. It does drop to a Psychic right away. Gardevoir throws off a Hyper Voice that's not doing much to Delphox. Kingambit protected. Delphox Psychic back, crits Gardevoir. Hyper Voice does not take a KO, and Iron Head knocks out Gardevoir, and the Grampas take the win. With just a great showcase, honestly, of what their team can do. I mean, I think the Sableye was the biggest hero of this set because the burns made a big difference throughout. But it turns out Sneasler, Delphox, Kingambit is a really scary offensive core, and it's just hard to deal with the sheer pressure that these 4 put out, as the Digletts were able to take a game with Mega Gardevoir and supports, but under the pressure of this game, they were kind of stuck pivoting the supports around and just didn't have as much offensive presence as the opponent did, and it paid off for the Grampas in the end, plus some really solid plays on both sides, just really well executed game plans, like I said. Tough set for both sides, but a deserved win for the Drampa Grampas. Next, Pendragon United take on the Minty Meloetta. Pendragon United have brought Mega Dragonite Rain, Mega Mawile Trick Room, familiar stuff. Kangaskhan Fake Out support, Sarina stops priority. Sarina's also strong into Basculegion, which is one of the most threatening Pokemon on the other side, and maybe like it can Trop Kick Excadrill, or just hit Excadrill with a fighting type attack. But otherwise, pretty typical stuff that we've seen before from Pendragon United. And it'll be interesting to see which megas they focus on. I've been very bad at guessing which mega their game plans focus on in a given game. I've been very bad at guessing that so far. And in this matchup, I see pros and cons to both megas, so I don't really know. On the Minty Meloetta side, Mr. Rhyme is obviously a threat into Dragonite. Gliscor is a threat into Mawile, so is Excadrill. So their basic plan of countering other people's plans is pretty clear to make out here. Mega Meganium as well. Mega Meganium doesn't have the easiest time dealing with Dragonite, but it's strong into like Politoed. So, yeah, they have decent offensive answers to the obvious Pendragon United game plans. There may be some guesswork involved because I feel like they have some Pokemon that match up, like Mr. Rhyme matches up well into Dragonite, but really badly into Mawile. It's kind of the reverse for Gliscor, although Gliscor could maybe be good into Dragonite in some positions. So there may be a bit of a mind game here where the Meloetta have brought the right counters to the right threats, but they have to figure out how best to deploy them. And of course, Basculegion is a giant offensive menace pretty much all the time, but it is vulnerable to Kangaskhan Fake Out and potentially Sucker Punch, Mawile Sucker Punch, Sarina Trop Kick. So it's not going to be the easiest thing to set up a Basculegion sweep, as well as Dragonite being able to take a hit with Multiscale. But, of course, I've buried the lead again. The Furfrou is here. I want to see what the Furfrou does. Let's hope they bring Furfrou to at least one of the games. Mr. Rhyme leads with Gliscor against Farigiraf and Kangaskhan, so it looks like it's probably a Mawile Trick Room game plan for Pendragon United in Game 1. And we see the Gliscor here for the other side, so they might have brought the right... Well, okay, they brought Gliscor and Mr. Rhyme. I guess they brought relatively good answers to both Megas on the other side, and they're trying to play flexibly and figure out what the best approach is. But yeah, let's see what they have for this this version of what their opponent could cook up. Kangaskhan Fake Out does a quarter right away to Mr. Rhyme. We see Knockoff from Gliscor does less than half to Farigiraf, but does get rid of some leftovers. But Farigiraf will be free to set Trick Room here. We see now the Furfrou switch in. Furfrou is here. It's finally time. Let's finally see what Furfrou does. First, Farigiraf throws off a Hyper Voice and does some pretty good chip damage actually to both opponents. Then Kangaskhan shows that it's running the Last Resort set, just like the other Kangaskhan in Pool B. No Sucker Punch, but that Last Resort just takes out the Gliscor. Again, suggests to me that Pendragon United is setting up for Mawile in the back, getting rid of one of the obvious threats. We'll see if there's Excadrill here on the other side. Excadrill, you know, it's their only normal resist, not counting Basculegion because Kangaskhan gets to ignore its normal immunity. Excadrill is their only normal resist and is strong into Mega Mawile, so let's see if they brought it as well as Gliscor here. But Gliscor will faint. Okay, Excadrill is here with Mold Breaker. It protects. Another Hyper Voice from Farigiraf chips down the Furfrou some more. Furfrou shows Crunch. Furfrou's Crunch does a whopping 27% to Farigiraf. Furfrou's in range of another Hyper Voice, and Farigiraf has the speed advantage, and Farigiraf might not be in range of another Crunch. So, interesting early look at what Furfrou can do for sure. And then it drops the Last Resort. Okay, well, hopefully we'll see it again. Mr. Rhyme is back. Excadrill Mega Evolves. I did not remember that it was Mega Excadrill, but there we go. I mean, Mega Excadrill could be pretty strong into what Pendragon United have brought, right? Like, all normal attack Kangaskhan, Farigiraf, probably Mawile in the back. These are not great Mega Excadrill answers. I mean, the last Pokemon could be Politoed or Serena, but maybe Mega Excadrill can do something here. First, it gets chipped a little bit by Hyper Voice. Then it gets chipped more than a little bit by Last Resort. Kangaskhan takes 45% from Mr. Rhyme's Psychic, and Excadrill throws back a Rock Slide. Does not get a KO, but it's the last turn of Trick Room now. The Meloetta could protect through the last turn of Trick Room. They don't do that. Neither Pokemon protects, but Mr. Rhyme takes a Shadow Ball from Farigiraf and the Special Defense drop. Knocks out Farigiraf with a Freeze Dry. Kangaskhan knocks out Mr. Rhyme with a Last Resort, but then drops to Excadrill Earthquake. I guess the Meloetta okay with losing their Mr. Rhyme there anyway. Excadrill gets that KO on the last turn of Trick Room, and well, we'll see. I mean, I want to say it might come down to what Pendragon United have in the back. The problem here is they have to have at least one of Dragonite, Serena, and Politoed, and realistically, all of those are super threatening to Excadrill. It's not like a Rock Slide is going to one-shot Dragonite. And Excadrill's offensively threatened by all those Pokemon, probably, if Dragonite has any reasonable coverage. So Mega Excadrill kind of looks like it has a chance to be a hero here, but unfortunately I don't think it's real. Mawile and Serena are the last two Pokemon. I didn't even think about Mawile intimidating Excadrill, but that does happen here. And then it Mega Evolves, and then it Sucker Punches. Excadrill does take the hit, but it's left at 3%. It goes for a Rock Slide, which does very little. I think Excadrill at this point was probably just hoping to flinch its way out of this. But it's not... But Mawile prevents that with the Sucker Punch priority anyway, even if that were to work out. It's not possible with Mawile moving first. And Serena doesn't flinch anyway and knocks out Excadrill with a Drop Kick. So I feel like the Meloetta brought their Mawile answers, but their Pokemon just took so much damage from Farigiraf and Kangaskhan before the Mawile even came out that they weren't able to stand up to it in the end. So let's see if they have a different idea in Game 2. And Pendragon United could also bring a totally different game plan centered on the Dragonite or something. Let's find out. Like I said, we could be getting into a mind game here. Basculegion and Gliscor will lead this time for the Meloetta. That reads to me... Well, I don't know. Like, in theory, they're trying to offensively threaten the Farigiraf as much as possible, maybe? Or maybe they think that there's going to be a switch to the rain mode to try to catch them off guard, and they're using Basculegion to take advantage of the opponent's rain. The problem with using this to threaten Farigiraf is, of course, Kangaskhan Fake Out works on Basculegion. But let's see now what Pendragon United have done. Dragonite and Kangaskhan. So it is a different Mega, but the Kangaskhan is still here to be a menace. Dragonite Mega evolves. Kangaskhan fakes out the Basculegion. It does 31%. That's not even a crit. Kangaskhan is just that nuts with Fake Out. People were worried about Mega Kangaskhan coming back in Pokemon Champions. I haven't seen that Pokemon very often in any format in this generation, but regular Kangaskhan Fake Out is just one of the silliest things that I keep seeing week after week in this league. Basculegion flinches. Gliscor sets Tailwind, but Dragonite also sets Tailwind, but Gliscor was faster, and so was Basculegion, unless it went for Aqua Jet? But I don't think it went for Aqua Jet. I think it's just faster than Dragonite. So the Tailwind's still not giving Dragonite a speed advantage here, but we'll see about Kangaskhan with that last resort. Basculegion moves next. It lands an Ice Fang into Dragonite. Ice Fang's not super strong, and it doesn't have Stab here, and Dragonite has Multiscale, so I don't think that's going to one-shot. No, it does less than half. Gliscor follows up with the knockoff, but that is, thanks to the Multiscale, not enough to take out the Dragonite. But both of these Pokemon being faster than Dragonite does make things a bit more interesting. However, Dragonite will get to attack here. Never mind, it flinches. Ice Fang has a flinch chance. Sometimes people forget that. It also has a freeze chance. So Basculegion coming in kind of clutch there, despite the Multiscale, but Kangaskhan will get to click that last resort and just knock out Basculegion. Now Meganium is here. It'll Mega Evolve. Knock Off removes the Silk Scarf from Kangaskhan, so the last resort will hit somewhat less absurdly hard now, although still pretty hard, I would think. But let's see the speed interaction between Dragonite and Meganium. Losing Basculegion might have cost the Meloetta their speed advantage. Yes, Dragonite outspeeds Meganium, but it uses that speed advantage to miss a Hurricane. Kangaskhan last resort goes into Gliscor, and Meganium Dazzling Gleam takes out Dragonite, although it doesn't do a whole lot to Kangaskhan. Last turn of Tailwind on both sides. Sarina is here. Gliscor switches out to Mr. Rime. Kangaskhan switches out to Politoed. Interesting. And Sarina shows Triple Axle. It is not Triple Axle's week, though. Once again, a Pokemon gets all... Every time we've seen Triple Axle so far, it's gotten all 3 hits, but not the KO. But that's still a lot of damage on Meganium, so maybe I shouldn't bash it. Meganium throws a Weather Ball back at Sarina. Also doesn't quite get the KO. Mr. Rime switches out. That's interesting. I feel like Mr. Rime could have been a menace in this position, but I guess I don't know it's set. But if Mr. Rime could take out Sarina... Sarina might be faster than Mr. Rime. Looks like it has a tiny bit higher base speed. Well, I don't know. If Mr. Rime could deal with Sarina, so Meganium could deal with Politoed, that could have been interesting for the Meloetta, but maybe that was just not really realistic. Gliscor switches in. Meganium protects. Avoids an Ice Beam from Politoed. Knock Off removes Gliscor's Ice Resistance Berry, but does not quite knock it out. It's not going to take an Ice-type hit at this point anyway. Meganium switches out for Mr. Rime. Politoed takes out Gliscor with an Ice Beam. Sarina lands a Triple Axle into Mr. Rime. Of course, it's resisted. It continues the pattern of every Triple Axle this week, getting all 3 hits, but no knockouts. Mr. Rime takes that pretty well, but now Meganium is forced back onto the field. Politoed switches out to Kangaskhan. Sarina just takes out Mr. Rime with a knockoff and confirms that it is in fact faster, so my idea earlier did in fact not work. Solar Beam will take out the Kangaskhan, but Politoed switching out is able to come back in safely now and Ice Beam Meganium to win the game. And so Pendragon United grabbed an early Pokemon advantage, taking out that Basculegion, and then we're able to just keep hitting things hard, especially with Sarina, and convert. And so the Minty Meloetta, despite finally bringing that Furfrou that I've been wanting to see all season, do end up taking the loss in this one. Next, the Ontario Oguris take on what is a stab move anyway. I think we know what the Oguris do at this point. They have Floette. They have Redirection, Fake Out Support, possibly more Redirection from Volcarona. Volcarona also can set up with Quiver Dance. Melodic can set up with Coil. They have strong setup supports, and Mega Floette is the main thing they use those on, but they have other options as well. And then there's also a Lycanroc. I don't know. Lycanroc can threaten Aerodactyl. That's pretty good. It can hit Meowstic hard. That's pretty good. What is the stab move anyway? Might have their own setup game plan here. Well, they probably do with the Mega Staraptor, right? But they also have Hisuian Goodra with possible redirection support from Clefable, with possible Fake Out and other Prankster support from Meowstic. And Hisuian Goodra as a Steel type is able to threaten Mega Floette, while also as a Dragon type not being super threatened by Melodic. The Volcarona interaction is a little tricky because Volcarona can potentially boost itself, but and Goodra takes neutral damage from fire. But yeah, Hisuian Goodra could be a pretty strong one Pokemon disruption into the Oguris setup modes, and of course it's also not very vulnerable to Population Bomb, so it's not like Mousehold can just blast through it. I mean, Goodra gets Shelter to boost its defense, it resists normal to begin with, and also it gets Shell Armor so that the Population Bomb can't get any crits into it. So I think the what is a stab move game plan might be centered on the Goodra here, and I think that matches up reasonably well into pretty much everything the Oguris can throw at it. I mean, Lycanroc can maybe threaten it with like Close Combat or Drill Run. Lycanroc is also itself threatened by things like Mega Staraptor and Empoleon. But yeah, this could be a clash between two setup game plans here, and the Oguris version has looked very, very powerful all season. But what is a stab move might have some good answers. We'll have to see. I really don't dislike this matchup for them. Mousehold and Floette lead against Empoleon and Meowstic. Floette Mega Evolves. It protects. Meowstic does not Mega Evolve, but I do remember that this is Mega Meowstic. We've seen them Mega Evolve it by mistake one time. The Fake Out goes into Mousehold from Meowstic as Floette avoids a Flash Cannon from Empoleon. So now Mousehold is free to redirect things if it wants, but it still doesn't do that. I wonder if we're going to see a Population Bomb. First we see Fake Tears from the Meowstic. The Flash Cannon goes into Floette again, does 35%. We see Taunt from Mousehold into Meowstic. Okay. That makes sense, but Mousehold is at that does have that lowered special defense. Once it starts clicking Follow Me, if it doesn't switch out first, it might not stick around for long. But Floette is already starting to set up with Calm Mind. Now we see the Follow Me. Mousehold is just taken out by a Flash Cannon. We see Dazzling Gleam. Meowstic, taunted, by the way, stayed in, so it will be attacking here. It just took 60% from a Dazzling Gleam. Empoleon took that pretty well. Psychic doesn't do a whole lot to Floette. Floette still stays just over 50%. Now Lycanroc is here. Meowstic is taunted. Can't mess with it with Prankster. I think that Close Combat or Drill Run could be coming out. Not only is that strong into Goodra, it's also strong into Empoleon. I think we might see that here. Could be interesting if Staraptor switches in and intimidates Lycanroc and avoids big damage, but of course then that makes Staraptor vulnerable to a Dazzling Gleam, so the Oguris using Lycanroc's offensive pressure pretty effectively, I would think, but we'll see what actually happens here. Empoleon just stays in and gets knocked out by Close Combat. And then Floette takes out Meowstic with a Dazzling Gleam. Stab have their last two Pokemon now, Aerodactyl and Staraptor. They get the Intimidate into Lycanroc. Floette as well, but Floette doesn't really care. Lycanroc will switch out. Now Incineroar will come in and intimidate these two, and of course this happens before Staraptor can Mega Evolve, so it does take the attack drop. It Mega Evolves now. Floette protects. As Aerodactyl throws off a Rock Slide, Incineroar takes some decent chip from that, considering Aerodactyl's a -1. Floette avoids a Brave Bird from Staraptor. Notably, Close Combat, not so good to click into Floette because Floette resists that, and Staraptor is weak to Dazzling Gleam and still going to take a lot of damage, even at +1 special defense. So Staraptor not able to go for a boost there, just going for damage and not getting it because of the Protect. Lycanroc pivots back in now. Rock Slide misses Lycanroc, but does good damage to Floette, and Staraptor actually uses Final Gambit, trading itself for Floette, which is a bold play from Stab. I mean, I feel like they probably had to just go for the Brave Bird again there. Because getting rid of Floette is important, but it's not enough to win the game, right? They only have 2 Pokemon left, and they've traded the stronger one just to get rid of the Floette, when Aerodactyl is still super vulnerable to this Lycanroc. So I think they had to stick with the Brave Bird there and hope it would KO. I don't know, but yeah, I think that Mega for Mega trade is probably not very favorable, especially as Aerodactyl gets intimidated again. And Stab forfeit before the Lycanroc even gets a chance to click an Accelerock or a Rock Slide or something. So maybe that Final Gambit was just them throwing in the towel on this game, and maybe getting Staraptor a KO for the stats before throwing in the towel, but we'll see if they have something different cooked up in Game 2. I really think the Goodra looks like it could be a menace in this matchup, so I'm kind of surprised that we didn't see it there. Maybe they wanted to kind of feel out what the opponent could do first, get a sense of the opponent's options, maybe what kinds of sets Pokemon like Melodic and Volcarona have, but we didn't see Melodic and Volcarona, so we still don't know. But let's see if the Goodra can do... let's see if they try something with the Goodra in Game 2. Lycanroc and Floette against Staraptor and Meowstic, okay. Lycanroc is intimidated right away, Staraptor Mega Evolves right away, but so does Floette, and Floette still has that powerful, super effective damage available into Staraptor. Of course, they can fake out Floette here, potentially. And they do. Floette doesn't protect, so it does take the fake out. Lycanroc, though, goes for Rock Tomb into Staraptor, which boosts Staraptor's speed because of the contrary. Maybe they didn't expect Staraptor to just stay in and Mega Evolve turn 1. I don't really blame them for not expecting that. But they do end up boosting their opponent's speed. I wonder what Rock Tomb is for. Maybe it's to slow down Aerodactyl. That would make sense. But anyway, Staraptor takes out Lycanroc with a close combat, so now it has boosted speed and defenses, and Floette didn't get to move this turn. So even though Floette has a clear natural advantage against Staraptor, maybe things get a bit trickier. Mousehold's here, can click Follow Me. Staraptor can wipe it out with close combat and get its defenses even higher, but again, Floette's so strong, I'm not sure that's going to be enough for Staraptor to muscle through, but that's what Stab is going for, so we'll find out. Mousehold goes for Follow Me, picks a fake Tears, which is surprising to me because the partner with Meowstic right now is a physical attacker. We see Choppleberry on the Mousehold. It actually takes the close combat. It only takes 75%. Staraptor does get those defensive boosts, but Floette just knocks it out with a Moonblast. Yeah, +2 Staraptor still just drops to Mega Floette Moonblast. So I'm surprised that that's the game plan that Stab went with, but now that Staraptor is gone, we'll see what else they brought. Aerodactyl is here. Meowstic switches out to Empoleon. Aerodactyl just throws off a Rock Slide. Mousehold protects around it. Floette gets chipped a bit, but then it gets a Calm Mind. Mousehold goes for Follow Me. Empoleon moving before Aerodactyl. Okay. Takes out Mousehold with a Flash Cannon. You'd probably rather your Aerodactyl move first and knock out Mousehold so you can Flash Cannon Floette, but that's not what happens. Aerodactyl gets a Rock Slide in Floette that actually does a lot of damage. Okay, maybe you'd rather get your physical damage into +1 special defense Floette. That Rock Slide did almost half. Floette gets to throw a Dazzling Gleam back. It does knock out Aerodactyl. But Empoleon is still here. Meowstic shows up now with Melodic. And I'm getting kind of sent back to one of the early matches that we watched in Pool B, as we're going to see Empoleon versus Melodic here. And I guess the question is what damage they're able to do to each other. As I don't think Floette's sticking around much longer, most likely. It'll protect here. Fake Tears will lower Melodic's special defense while boosting its special attack. Bold play from Stab, but I wonder whether this Empoleon has Grass Knot. For now, we see Flash Cannon into Floette. Melodic sets up with Coil. If this Empoleon has Grass Knot, then it can take out Melodic quickly, and the competitive boost won't matter. And that'll make sense of the Fake Tears play. Floette goes for Protect. It's taken out by Flash Cannon. Has Floette stuck around long enough that Melodic can win the game, even if Stab are trying to set up for Empoleon to close things out? We'll see. Psychic from Meowstic not only does some pretty good damage, actually, but it also gets the special defense drop on Melodic. Melodic goes to -2 special defense, but +4 special attack. What is it going to do with that boost? Miss a Hypnosis into Empoleon at +1 accuracy. Unfortunate. Empoleon not showing Grass Knot, but Flash Cannon does pretty good damage. Well, it does reasonable damage after 2 different special defense drops into Melodic, and Meowstic is able to take out Melodic with a Psychic. The special defense drop from the earlier Psychic may have helped them here. But yeah, Melodic missing Hypnosis at +1 accuracy is pretty rough for the Oguris. They were trying to set up for Floette to keep the opponent's attention occupied long enough that Melodic could close this one out. We still didn't see what Melodic had available to do damage to Empoleon. It still might not have been the easiest thing for them. But after that Hypnosis miss, we don't even get to find out exactly what they were cooking, as Empoleon and Meowstic are able to just muscle through. So we're going to Game 3. Still no Goodra. I wonder if we'll see it now. Floette leads with Incineroar against Staraptor and Meowstic. Staraptor will get intimidated turn 1, so will Incineroar and Floette and Meowstic. But Staraptor, apparently not caring, just Mega Evolves turn 1, and so does Floette. Staraptor protects. The Fake Out goes into Incineroar from Meowstic. Floette just throws a Moonblast at Staraptor, but it hits the Protect, but, I mean, Floette's pretty free to do that again now. Meowstic switches out to Empoleon. Staraptor, well, first Incineroar switches out to Maushold. Staraptor just trades itself for Floette with Final Gambit. So this is, I guess, the better version of what Stab did in Game 1, right? It was... In Game 1, they were too far behind, and losing their Mega like that was just clearly bad for them. But so many of the Oguris' game plans are built around setting up Floette, and this time Stab have forced an early game trade. It's still their Mega for the opponent's Mega, but this looks a lot better for them than the Final Gambit in Game 1. The question is whether Empoleon can close this out, but, I mean, the Oguris potentially don't have a ton to do damage to it. They might have brought Lycanroc again, we'll find out. Goodra is here, so is Lycanroc. Lycanroc is a threat into both of these Steel types with the close combat, but it can only hit one of them at a time. And the Steel types can hit back very hard. But with redirection support from Maushold, maybe Lycanroc can get through this? We'll just have to see. Goodra switches out to Meowstic. Maushold does go for Follow Me. Close combat, just one-shots Empoleon. So I feel like Stab... I mean, if they protected the Empoleon here, they might be okay. But otherwise, I feel like Stab kind of had to just... Well, they were in a tough spot, actually, because they had to just attack, I think. But unless the Empoleon is spread damage, does Empoleon get Muddy Water? I think it probably doesn't, because people wouldn't complain about it having no water attacks if it could learn Muddy Water. I think it must not. Yeah, I guess the redirection just makes the difference here. Because if they could just attack Lycanroc with both of their Pokemon and make another trade, then they're in a good spot, but... Because the Maushold prevents them from attacking Lycanroc right away, they tried to reposition instead, and yeah, they just lose their Empoleon for basically nothing. Now it's Meowstic and Goodra left. Lycanroc switches out to Incineroar. I don't think the Intimidates are going to matter too much, but Incineroar takes the Fake Out, and since the Fake Out doesn't go into Maushold, Maushold is free to taunt Goodra. Goodra, though, not trying to set up with Shelter, just goes for Body Press into Incineroar, but that is no Stab, unboosted Body Press. Incineroar only takes 24% from that. And then it gets to Fake Out Goodra. And takes a Gooey drop. We see Gooey on the Goodra. But now Meowstic gets taunted. Okay, but covering for that, Psychic's Maushold for about a third, but yeah, the damage into Maushold is just not there right now. I mean, it's Body Press Goodra. Maybe if they just attacked... Earlier, it could have worked out, but it's Choppleberry Maushold. I forgot. Maushold actually takes the double up this turn. Incineroar Darkest Lariat takes out Meowstic. And so, yeah, Stab just didn't have enough damage to get around the pressure put out by the Lycanroc because that redirection support was there from Maushold. Goodra gets taunted again. It's just throwing off Body Presses, but it's not doing a whole lot to the Incineroar. Flare Blitz from Incineroar does more. Goodra will get to take out Maushold for more Body Press into a Follow Me, but Incineroar Flare Blitz doing more than half to unboosted Goodra takes it out. And as much as I talked about Goodra potentially being a menace in this set, the one time it shows up, it kind of just falls victim to this Incineroar. Incineroar just kind of does its heel wrestler thing and makes Goodra sad. But there we go. That's the power of the strong support Pokemon that the Oguris have, as they didn't get their Floette set up at all in Game 3. But just having that Follow Me support available for the Lycanroc put out a level of offensive pressure that the opponent couldn't deal with anymore when their Staraptor was gone. And the Staraptor Floette trade, in the end, I don't love it in Game 3 either. They had two Steel types in the back. They had some ways to threaten Floette, even though it's never easy. I guess the problem is one of their Steel types takes neutral damage from Moonblast, and the other one is a special attacker, so it's not... It has to contend with Floette's Calm Mind special defense boost. So I guess they just didn't have good answer. And I mean, if you throw like Heavy Slam Goodra at it, you're susceptible to Intimidate and Follow Me again. I guess they didn't have good enough answers to Floette. And so even though they had two Steel types in the back, the Mega Trade was still looked like the best thing they could do early in the game. And then they lose their best Lycanroc answer in Staraptor. And Lycanroc, I mean, I keep talking up Lycanroc, even though, it took 1 KO in this game? But the point is the pressure it put out just... I mean, what is the Stab move just crumbled under that once they'd gotten rid of their own Staraptor to get rid of the Floette. So once again, we see complementary offensive threats paying off, but also the support Pokemon for the Oguris, especially Incineroar and Mousehold, going absolutely nuts. As usual, I believe the Oguris are undefeated, and they are staying that way here. Finally, for now, the last set we have available to watch right now for this week. We have the Poblano Ho-Ho Peppers and the Minnesota Marshadows. The Peppers have their Mega Metagross, Grimmsnarl, Sinistcha, Primarina, Armarouge, Mega Scrafty, a bunch of the strong Pokemon that we've seen from them many a week. Powerful special attackers, powerful physical attackers, 2 different Mega options, and once again, strong supports in Grimmsnarl and Sinistcha. The Marshadows have brought the Vileplume again. Are we going to see Sun stuff from the Marshadows? They have Vileplume and Houndoom, with Sableye potentially able to set up the Sun. But they also have the Mega Blastoise. But yeah, Sun could be pretty strong, actually, for the Marshadows. Houndoom could be really strong here, actually, because it threatens Metagross and Sinistcha and Armarouge. Primarina doesn't especially want to face it in Sun, and I think Houndoom gets Solar Beam, probably. I can see a Houndoom game plan being interesting here. It is pretty vulnerable to Mega Scrafty, but then they have Florges to help them deal with Mega Scrafty. They also have Trick Room options with Oranguru. They have Mega Blastoise, which is always kind of a wild card, so let's just see what happens. Metagross and Grimmsnarl lead against Sableye and Oranguru, so 2 of the trickiest support Pokemon leading for the Marshadows, but I don't know what it is that they're setting up. Metagross Mega evolves right away. Be interesting to see another Will-O-Wisp Sableye. Grimmsnarl says Reflect. No Prankster move from the Sableye at all here. Is it foul play? First we'll see an Iron Head into Oranguru. Oranguru gets Inner Focus. It might not be possible for that Iron Head to flinch it. We do see foul play, doing more than half to Metagross immediately. And then Oranguru sets Trick Room. Metagross protects now. Grimmsnarl sets Light Screen, but Metagross, yeah, under a lot of pressure from that foul play, avoids this one. We see an Encore and a Grimmsnarl locking it into Light Screen. And although the Marshadows seem to be leading with 2 support Pokemon, I think this is Mega Sableye, right? But even though they seem to be leading with 2 support Pokemon that didn't put out a whole lot of pressure, they actually have kind of locked down the position as they bring in their Mega Blastoise here for Oranguru, therefore next to Sableye. So Sableye still threatening Metagross, keeping this slot from accomplishing anything, while the Grimmsnarl slot also can't do anything this turn. So they've gotten Blastoise in Trick Room, but they had to use a couple of their Trick Room turns to do it. Grimmsnarl switches out to Sinistcha, gives Metagross some recovery. Metagross not in range of foul play anymore. Thanks to the Hospitality, it narrowly takes this one. Lends an Iron Head into Sableye for 75%, so they got somewhat out of the positional lock. That damage could matter down the line. Metagross still very low, though. Blastoise Mega Evolves. Metagross protects. We see Light Screen from the Sableye now before a Machagotcha from Sinistcha. Sableye takes the Machagotcha thanks to the Light Screen, but it crits Mega Blastoise. All that positioning to get Mega Blastoise on the field, and it immediately gets crit by Sinistcha and also burned. And this Water Spout is going to be significantly weakened. Sinistcha would take that pretty well anyway, and Metagross protects to avoid it. So all that setup looking very effective to get Mega Blastoise into position, and it just doesn't quite pay off for them in the end here, as Sinistcha is able, with one move, to cause them quite a bit of trouble. That burn damage is going to add up as well, especially because Blastoise is low. It switches out here for Oranguru. We see Grimmsnarl come back in from Metagross, take the foul play, no problem. Machagotcha knocks out the Sableye, so that Iron Head into Sableye does pay off here, as the Peppers, despite some really interesting lockdown gameplay from the Marshadows, are still able to gradually start breaking through. Trick Room ends. Vileplume is the last Pokemon for the Marshadows. It's going to take a Machagotcha, no problem. Oranguru takes that pretty well. Also, Vileplume also not too bothered by the Spirit Break. Well, it only takes 15% damage, but it will also take the special attack drop. That might matter to it, as it goes for Pollen Puff to heal Oranguru, actually. So the Marshadows, they set the Trick Room back up. They're still trying to play their positional game here, right? The Vileplume not really under threat to be knocked out by either of these Pokemon. They can try to position now for a side Pollen Puff into Blastoise to keep that Pokemon healthy, keep it around longer, get the stronger Water Spouts again. Not that Sinistcha is all that bothered about the Water Spouts. So the Blastoise game plan is not dead yet, but the Sinistcha still is a giant problem for it, because I don't know where the damage into Sinistcha is from this team. I mean, Blastoise could be running Dark Pulse. In this matchup, you'd think it probably is, but we haven't seen it yet. Parting Shot goes into Vileplume, and we see Armarouge hit the field as Vileplume. There's no Blastoise switch in, there's no side Pollen Puff. I guess Blastoise can't safely switch in on the Machagotcha anyway. Vileplume goes for a Moonblast into Grimmsnarl, but it hits Armarouge for 4%. Psychic Noise from Oranguru, not doing a whole lot to Sinistcha either. The Marshadows set up a really interesting game plan here, but they don't have the damage to break through, and that means the Peppers have time to break through instead. Sinistcha also reversed the Trick Room there. Vileplume switches out to Blastoise. Blastoise hitting the field now, immediately coming in on a Psychic from Armarouge, holding on at 1%, but it's going to drop to the burn at the end of this turn, which it does. And where is the damage for the Marshadows now? They're down to Oranguru and Vileplume. Armor Cannon takes out Vileplume, so never mind that Pokemon. Oranguru is alone. It instructs nothing. It tries to instruct, but it's run out of pupils. And then it takes a ton of damage from an Armor Cannon. It sets Trick Room back up. But for what? Takes a Spirit Break at 1%. But for what? It's just clicking Trick Room. They're just playing it out to the end now. Armarouge gets the last KO for the Peppers. Instruct with no students. Sad thing to see. But let's see what the Marshadows have in Game 2. I still think a Houndoom game plan could make sense here. And the Blastoise stuff, I mean, they set it up so carefully, and it just didn't work. So, I mean, the Sinistcha just kind of ruined it. Maybe under different circumstances that doesn't happen. I still think the Blastoise probably has some coverage to hit Sinistcha, but yeah, I don't know. It didn't look very convincing in Game 1. So let's see if they have something different in Game 2. Primarina leads with Grimmsnarl against Houndoom. There it is, and Oranguru. Grimmsnarl sets Light Screen. Houndoom uses Comeuppance. Okay. I have absolutely no memory of what that move does. So rare in-game Bulbapedia moment here. Comeuppance returns 1.5 times the damage dealt by the foe's last attack. Unlike Counter or Mirror Coat, Comeuppance does not specifically require specifically physical or special damage sources, and Comeuppance does not have decreased priority. If the user attacks before it is hit by an opponent's damaging move, Comeuppance will fail. So it's Metal Burst? Except I think Metal Burst has decreased priority, maybe it doesn't. Metal Burst is not... Yeah, it's Metal Burst. But Dark type. Okay. I did not remember that move at all, which is rare for me. Anyway, back to our regular programming. Houndoom didn't take any damage, so Comeuppance didn't do anything. Also, I guess it has to be a slow Houndoom. I thought it might be a fast Houndoom, but I guess it has to be a slow one if it's using Comeuppance. It was trying to take a lot of damage from Primarina, but... Oh, wait, but it's faster than Primarina, so maybe never mind a slow Houndoom? Is it going to get hit hard by Primarina now? Yeah, it gets knocked down to a Focus Sash by Hyper Voice. So it wanted to use Comeuppance to give Primarina its Comeuppance, but it was faster? Were they tied? The Houndoom's kind of a fast Mon. Oh, well. Interesting plan, didn't work. Okay, Encore into Grimmsnarl, locking it into whatever it did this turn. Light Screen. Oh, that's not negative priority. Guess I just lose. Yeah, I mean, hey, I didn't even remember that was a move. You tell me the effect of Comeuppance, I would guess that it has negative priority too. So I do not blame the Marshadows for just not realizing. And hey, sometimes creative texts blow up in your face. And this is one of those times. I would also have I thought until just now that all these years I thought Metal Burst had negative priority, and I just found out in that Bulbapedia break that it doesn't. I guess I've just seen it used by very slow things. Like Bastrodon, but... Anyway. Cool idea, didn't work out. Houndoom goes for Destiny Bond, though, so it can still take something with it. It's going to be Primarina. There's a lot of damage to Oranguru on the way out, though. Oranguru sets Trick Room. Grimmsnarl's back. Blastoise is here. Blastoise does not have all that Machagotcha damage on it this time. It is not covered in Matcha. It can Mega Evolve in this Trick Room and go for that Water Spout with Instruct support, so maybe they don't... Maybe they don't just lose just yet. Metagross Mega Evolves. Reflect goes up. Oranguru underspeeds Blastoise and goes for Instruct. And there's nothing to Instruct, but for a different reason this time. So one Water Spout comes out, and it also does less than half to both of these Pokemon. So the Blastoise sweep might not be real, as it takes a lot of damage from a Psychic Fangs, and then it gets parting shotted. It gets shot. They encore their own Blastoise into Water Spout instead of using Instruct this time. I'm not sure why, but I think the Marshadows, perhaps knowing that their techs have backfired, are once again just playing this out because you're not really supposed to forfeit in a draft league. So they do the side encore for style points. Never mind, it was a misclick. They meant to Instruct plus Dark Pulse into Metagross. That would be pretty strong here. But yeah, the Blastoise is fainted. Vileplume's here. Side Pollen Puff into Oranguru, but we see the we see the Payapa berry on the Vileplume, so that's the name of the Psychic Resist berry. I've been noticing lately that I don't remember that one. There was a situation where it might have been useful to me. A future video probably, but yeah, I think they are just messing around now. Clicking their attacks into their own Pokemon, waiting for the opponent to take the KOs. Vileplume faints. Oranguru has nothing left to do but click Psychic Noise until it faints, and it looks like Mega Metagross will get that last KO. So, huge points to the Marshadows for creativity here. The game plans don't work out. And that's the end of this week, until and unless we get the Espurr versus Oshawotts set. But for now, we're going to wrap this one up, move on to next time. Actually, as I'm saying this, I'm probably playing my next week match in like an hour, and I haven't finished my team yet. So lots more for me to do, but this is the end of the video for this one. Goodbye.